My mom said to me, "If you can't have a child, we should get a divorce." My husband responded calmly, "Fine, I understand, even though I'm currently pregnant." I'm Emily, a housewife in my 30s, living with my husband who works for a company. We first crossed paths while I was employed at a food-related company. Our conversations about business dealings were always pleasant, and I was charmed by his occasional smile. I mustered the courage to ask him out, but he turned me down, saying, "Sorry, I'm flattered, but I have a girlfriend." A month later, he approached me with a change of heart. I broke up with her. "Will you go out with me?" It turns out he had started noticing me after my confession. His ex-girlfriend, sensing something was amiss, had asked, "Did you fall for someone else?" When he agreed with her suggestion to break up, they ended their relationship. I felt a pang of guilt for being the catalyst for their split, but he reassured me with a warm smile, saying, "It wouldn't have lasted long anyway. Don't worry about it." His comfort eased my worries, and after 3 years of dating, we got married. When we decided to get married, he said, "I'd like us to have children after we're married. Would you be willing to stay home and support me and our future kids?" At that time, I was working at a demanding job and was eager for a change, so I agreed to become a stay-at-home wife. I was determined to support my husband and embrace this new role. The transition from a working woman to a housewife was challenging, but it was worth it for the joy of our newlywed life. Every day felt blissful, and the absence of any issues with my mother-in-law was a significant relief. Her house was only a 10-minute walk from our apartment. I initially worried about frequent visits and potential intrusiveness, but my fears proved unfounded. My in-laws were incredibly kind and supportive. Whenever I had a question, they made the effort to visit our home and explain things thoroughly. Despite our difficulties in starting a family, they were always understanding. My mother-in-law even told me, "You're more precious to me than a grandchild. I've always wished for a daughter since our family only had men. Please let me continue to cherish you like my own daughter." I adored my mother-in-law and trusted my quiet but dependable father-in-law. However, this harmonious relationship only lasted through the first few years. Over time, my once kind in-laws underwent a noticeable shift. My father-in-law became increasingly reserved, while my mother-in-law's demeanor changed drastically. Perhaps it was her true nature all along. Her attitude towards me went from being exceptionally warm to overtly cold. She has become quite harsh, frequently visiting our home, especially when my husband isn't around, and constantly nagging me about when we'll finally have a child. "It's your duty as a wife," she insists. This contrasts sharply with her previous attitude, where she once told me, "Children are gifts from heaven. They'll come in their own time, so don't rush." Now, she compares me to other families, adding pressure with remarks like, "The lady next door just had a baby, and the one next to her is expecting. What about you?" Despite her persistent pressure, it's been fruitless without my husband's involvement. He initially wanted children, but a year into our marriage, he lost interest. Even when I attempted to initiate intimacy, he would decline with excuses like, "I'm too tired, maybe another time," or "Don't bother me while I'm gaming." Despite discussing my struggles with my mother-in-law, she remained unsympathetic and continued to pressure me for a grandchild, only adding to my stress each day. Overwhelmed by her demands, I confided in my husband about the increasing pressure to have a child. He agreed to try for a baby with me, saying, "I don't think we need to rush." Despite our efforts, I didn't become pregnant. My mother-in-law continued to blame me, insisting, "It's because you're not trying hard enough. My son is not at fault at all." I even wondered if her constant criticism was making it more difficult for me to conceive. Unable to handle the mounting pressure, we decided to seek fertility treatment. I hoped this would finally ease my worries, but another issue emerged: my husband's behavior. Since we began the treatment, he became distant and cold, retreating to his room to play games after work and ignoring me when I tried to talk. This was difficult enough, but his frustration with my spending on crafting materials and his increasing volatility added to my distress. Whenever I stood up for myself, he would snap, "Who do you think allows you to live this way? You're just a housewife," and continued his selfish behavior. Even though I had quit my job at his request, he refused to acknowledge or address my concerns. One day, I came home to find him playing games during his usual work hours. I asked, "Aren't you going to work?" He simply replied, "I quit." He had resigned from his job without informing me. Shocked, I asked why, but he only grew angry, snapping, "It's none of your business." I was appalled by his response, but there was nothing I could do about a job he had already left. Initially, I wasn't too worried about finances, thinking we could get by with unemployment benefits and our savings. However, stress quickly mounted as my husband showed no interest in finding a new job. After quitting, my husband began spending all his time at home. I wished he would get out more, but he preferred to stay indoors, only venturing out to buy cigarettes. Our time together has increased significantly since he stopped working. At first, this seemed like an opportunity for more closeness, but it quickly turned sour. Just like with my mother-in-law, the constant proximity to my husband, whose attitude has shifted from warm to cold, has led to frequent arguments. I've come to realize that even simple conversations with him are now stressful, and we've almost stopped talking altogether. I find myself questioning whether this kind of married life is worth continuing. I started to feel like I had reached my breaking point with this marriage and began searching for a way out. Fed up with his endless gaming, I confronted him. "You're not a child. Stop playing games all day and start looking for a job." He then mentioned, "By the way, my mom said if you can't have a child, we should get divorced." In that moment, I felt a strange sense of relief, as if my mother-in-law was indirectly helping me. I had just discovered that I was pregnant after a checkup that day, and I had planned to share the news with him that evening. However, deciding not to tell him right away seemed like the right choice. It allowed me to distance myself from both my mother-in-law and my husband. I handed him the divorce papers, which I had pre-filled and kept in a drawer. "Okay, I understand. Here are the divorce papers," I said. My husband, clearly unprepared for this turn of events, looked stunned and speechless as he saw the papers. His usual commanding demeanor vanished, replaced by a bewildered expression. He seemed at a loss for words but began filling out the documents, clearly feeling compelled to comply with his mother's wishes. As he completed the forms, he kept casting glances at me, still processing the shock. We agreed to discuss property division later, but there wasn't much to divide. Our assets were minimal, largely because my husband had a tendency to spend extravagantly on his hobbies. While he criticized my spending, he was far more reckless with his own money, frequently splurging on gaming and amusement arcades. He had always been bad with saving money, both before and after our marriage, so we had no significant assets to divide. When it became clear that there was no real property to split, I thought our discussion was finished. However, my husband insisted otherwise. He pointed to a bank statement and said, "Don't we still have our savings?" The statement showed a substantial amount of savings, which he suggested we divide. I explained, "This money is from before our marriage, so it isn't part of the property division." His face went pale, but he countered, "Fine, but this apartment should be included in the division, right? I lived here too." I had to deliver some difficult news. "Unfortunately, the apartment is in my name, so you have no claim to it. Additionally, I've already listed it for sale, so you'll need to move out soon. Please make arrangements to leave. It would be inconvenient for you to stay here," I said with a calm smile. I had been saving for a future home, anticipating that this apartment might eventually be too small. Saving money had always been a hobby of mine, and I had accumulated substantial savings before our marriage. Even as a regular employee, I was able to purchase the apartment with those savings. So I did have some assets. With the proceeds from the sale, I planned to build a new house in the city center. Of course, this property, being from before our marriage, was not subject to division. It seemed my husband was unaware of this detail. He apparently believed he would be entitled to half of my property, but that was not the case. When he realized he wouldn't receive any part of it, he was left stunned. The shock left him in a daze as we continued our discussion, but he struggled to recover his composure. With little left to discuss, the conversation wrapped up quickly, and we proceeded to submit the divorce papers to our lawyers. The divorce was finalized smoothly. A few months later, I moved back to my parents' home, and with their support, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. I named him Ambrose, inspired by the phrase, "A boys be ambitious." Now, I'm enjoying a fulfilling life with my parents and my cherished child. I haven't informed my ex-husband or his family about Ambrose. I'm certain that if I did, my former mother-in-law would come storming in, demanding, "Give me back my grandchild." As for my ex-husband, after being forced out of the apartment, he returned to his parents' home. He has become a recluse, unable to cope with the ease of our divorce. His behavior is so suspicious that he often gets stopped by the police when he ventures outside. It's a rather pitiable situation. I later discovered that his decision to quit his job stemmed from deteriorating work relationships. It turns out my ex-husband was disliked at his company for his constant bad-mouthing, particularly by his female colleagues, and eventually, everyone began to ignore him. Unable to bear the isolation, he abruptly resigned. Perhaps his true nature was evident even before our marriage, kind only to me, while hiding his true colors beneath a facade. 3 years later, I was working as the manager of a craft store. After becoming a regular customer at a local shop, the manager, Linda, approached me with an offer. I'm getting older and considering retirement. If you're interested, Emily, would you like to take over this store? Linda asked. At that time, my parents were actively helping with childcare, and I was looking for a new job. If I turned down the offer, the store would close, which would inconvenience many loyal customers. Weighing these factors, I decided to accept and take over the store. While attending to a regular customer today, I was surprised by an unexpected visit from my former mother-in-law and ex-husband. Wow, this is a lovely shop, my ex-husband remarked. Yeah, Mom, look at this fabric. It would look great on you, he added. Annoyed by their obvious flattery, I asked, what are you doing here? My former mother-in-law then demanded, give me back my grandson. It seemed she had somehow learned about my child's birth and wanted him as the heir to their family. You were already pregnant when I asked for the divorce. Why didn't you tell me? If I had known, I wouldn't have gone through with it, my ex-husband accused. That's exactly why I wanted a divorce. If you had known about the pregnancy, you would have done everything you could to prevent it. I shot back, glaring at him and my former mother-in-law. My former mother-in-law then demanded, so, are you going to give me back my grandchild or not? I want to live with him soon. You've had him for 3 years. Now it's my turn. Her entitlement was staggering. As I stood there, incredulous, my parents and Ambrose arrived, having been alerted by a regular customer. What's going on? Is there a problem? They asked, clearly concerned and ready to assist. Seeing Ambrose holding hands with my parents, my former mother-in-law tried to approach him, saying, oh, he's so cute. Just like my son when he was young. Look, I'm your grandma. I attempted to intervene, but it wasn't necessary. Ambrose, clinging to my mother, said firmly, this is my only grandma. Can you please leave now? My mother nodded and asked the former mother-in-law to leave, but she insisted, just give me the child. Meanwhile, my ex-husband, eager to forcibly take Ambrose from my parents, advanced. I moved in front of Ambrose to protect him, but being much smaller, I was easily pushed aside. Ambrose, be careful, I shouted. My ex-husband was just inches away from grabbing Ambrose when suddenly his body was lifted off the ground. Looking up, I saw my father, who had executed a precise shoulder throw. Unbeknownst to my ex-husband, my father was a police officer with advanced judo skills. Stunned and in pain, my ex-husband looked up at my father with a mixture of fear and disbelief. If you continue to harass my child or grandchild, I will take further action, my father warned, displaying his police badge. Seeing this, my former mother-in-law, now pale and shaken, quickly pulled my ex-husband away, and they fled. I don't know what happened to them after that, and honestly, I have no desire to find out. Several years later, inspired by my father, Ambrose set his sights on becoming a police officer. I want to be a police officer when I grow up so I can protect Mom too, he said with determination. He has been working hard in his studies to achieve this goal, and is now undefeated in judo among his peers, thanks to my father's training. I'm excited to see my son grow into a remarkable person.
I'm a 35-year-old office worker and my husband Kevin, who is 6 years older, and I have been married for 9 years. Right now, due to some reasons, I'm living with my mom. Let me explain how I ended up in this situation. 4 years ago, Kevin and I built a house. At that time, Kevin had just changed jobs, and we didn't have much money saved or a big income. Kevin used to work for a big company, but he faced constant hidden bullying from his boss. This caused him sleep problems, and eventually, he couldn't go to work anymore. He saw a psychiatrist, took a break for about 3 months, but when he didn't get better, he quit his job. After that, we got by on just my salary. Kevin didn't work for 3 months, but slowly started to feel better. He began eating and sleeping well again, and his psychiatrist was pleased with his quick recovery. My cheerful, loving Kevin was back. He then started looking for a new job. His experience at the big company helped, but finding a job was hard because he left his last job due to mental health issues. During this time, we found a small company that needed him. The salary was about 4/3 of what he used to make, but he was happy to be working again. He said it was much better than being without a job, which made me happy. This job was also in the field he wanted to work in. We wanted to have children, but it was clear that life would be tough if I stopped working, so I continued working. I also loved my job, and we decided not to have children at that time, since it was just the three of us. Our life was peaceful until my mother, Sarah, was paralyzed in a car accident and needed a wheelchair to get around. My dad had passed away when I was in middle school, and Sarah had been living alone since then. Our family home was old and not suitable for a wheelchair with many steps. Kevin then said, "I'm worried. Let's live together." Sarah and I were surprised, but I appreciated Kevin's unexpected kindness. Since Kevin had just changed jobs, we were unsure about the future, but we decided to apply for a mortgage. As we expected, it was tough to get a loan because Kevin hadn't been at his job for long. However, we were determined and didn't give up. After trying with several mortgage companies, we finally found one that worked with us and approved our loan. We bought our dream home, which I had always imagined filled with the smell of wood, thick wooden beams on the ceiling, custom storage spaces, a kitchen tailored for my height, and spacious cypress flooring. Importantly, it was a single-story, barrier-free house, perfect for living comfortably in a wheelchair. We were excited as the house was being built and visited the construction site every day. When our carefully designed home was finished, it had a large yard where my mom, who now seldom went outside, could enjoy sunbathing. However, there was a catch with the land. It was given to us by Kevin's grandfather, who adored Kevin. Kevin's family wasn't wealthy, but when his grandfather was diagnosed with cancer, he started to distribute his assets, giving us the largest plot of land. It felt like winning the lottery, but the land was just a 10-minute walk from Kevin's family home. When we told them my mother would be moving in with us, Kevin's sister laughed and said, "Why is your mother moving in too? How shameless is your family?" Kevin's mother told me marrying someone different like you would bring trouble. She also harshly said it was terrible for her son to have to care for an old person and called me a curse. Even then, Kevin stood up for my mother and me. He said the land was a gift from his grandfather and no one should complain. Kevin's mother and sister are really mean. It's amazing that Kevin, who is so kind, comes from that family. He's like a beautiful flower that grew out of mud. Kevin always says his family shows him how not to be. Kevin thinks his grandfather gave us the land because he wanted us to take care of his mother in her old age. He also gave other properties away. Kevin's sister got a parking lot that's a 10-minute walk from their home. It's smaller than our land, but makes good money from parking fees. Honestly, I would have preferred that, but a gift is still a gift, and we are thankful. Thanks to my grandfather-in-law, we could build our house without paying for the land and used it to help get a loan. When the house was finished, we invited Kevin's mother and sister's family over. The builders told us they had visited the house several times without asking us. They showed up late without apologizing and said, "This is kind of like Grandpa's house, so it's like our house too." Kevin's sister came in with muddy shoes and said the house smelled nice and didn't need air fresheners. She and her husband walked around with muddy shoes, ignoring the slippers we offered. When I suggested they use slippers, she laughed and said it was too much trouble and we could just clean the floor. The visit was uncomfortable from the start, and they didn't bring anything with them. When they saw my mother's room, which is spacious and sunny, Kevin's mother said she would like that room. My mother's room is like a duplex, with its own kitchen, almost a second living space. "I want to live here," said my mother-in-law during the third point of her conversation. She then told my mother, "You were lucky to have that accident, weren't you? Thanks to being paralyzed, you moved from that old shack to this nice house. Isn't that a lucky turn of events?" My mother said nothing but looked very sad. I was really angry inside, But before I could say anything, Kevin spoke up. "What did you just say? There are things you should and shouldn't say. It makes me question your humanity. I can't even believe you're part of my family. You're the worst. Apologize now," Kevin demanded firmly. Whether they were amused or not, my mother and sister-in-law glared at me. Then my sister-in-law angrily asked Kevin, "What's this all about?" "It's a total turn-off. It's not cool to invite people over and then be rude to them just because you built a house. You think you can act superior." The mother-in-law chimed in, "My son messed up by marrying you. You're a jinx." Kevin didn't stay silent. "Enough is enough. This mess started because of your rude comments. You said the accident was a good thing and called my wife a jinx. I will not forgive that." The mother and sister-in-law looked frustrated by Kevin's strong response. Then my mother, who had been watching everything, said with regret, "It's okay. I am here because of the accident, and it's true I moved from a rundown house to this beautiful one. Your son has always been kind to me. Thank you." Perhaps feeling guilty, the mother and sister-in-law left, giving me a nasty look. My mother then apologized to Kevin. "I'm sorry if I upset your mother and sister. I'm sorry for ruining the mood at our housewarming party." Kevin responded, "No, I should be the one apologizing. It's embarrassing how they lack decency. I'm really sorry, but I am happy to be living with you. Please understand that." With that, my mother started to tear up. Since we live near Kevin's parents' house, the neighbors all know us well. They've known Kevin since he was a child and are very kind to us. 4 months have passed since that day. We were finally settling into our new home, and my mother started to smile more when I received an unexpected call from home. While I was at work, we rarely get calls from home, so it surprised me. My bad feeling was right. My mom, sounding very upset, called to tell me something awful. Kevin had collapsed at work. I was shocked and spoke to my boss right away, then rushed to the hospital. On the way, I tried to stay calm by imagining that Kevin would be okay when I got there, joking around like always. But when I arrived, it was a shock to see him with so many tubes attached to him. We had planned to go to a movie that weekend. The doctor told me Kevin was in critical condition and might not wake up. I felt like I was in a movie. I couldn't even cry. Despite my prayers, Kevin passed away. At the hospital, my shock continued as my mother and sister-in-law arrived. When they heard Kevin had died, my sister-in-law accused me harshly, asking if I had poisoned him or if I was after his life insurance. My mother-in-law also blamed me, saying bad things always happen around me and called me a jinx. I was too sad to respond. Then my own mother arrived in a caregiver's taxi, crying over Kevin's death, which finally made me cry too. We both sobbed loudly. My mother-in-law rudely told us to stop the fake crying. She said Kevin had changed because of me and that she didn't want to see us ever again. Then she left the hospital. A funeral director came to organize Kevin's funeral, and we went to the funeral home. Kevin had died from a brain hemorrhage, which was hard to believe since he was fine that morning. When I told my mother-in-law the funeral plans, she harshly said she wouldn't come because Kevin always sided with my mother and me. She said her daughter wouldn't come either. Many of Kevin's coworkers and friends came to the viewing, but neither my mother nor my sister-in-law and her husband were there. Many attended the funeral, and it was clear that Kevin was deeply loved. Many people cried for him. It was hard, but maybe this is just the kind of people his family were. I was happy to spend the whole day with those who truly missed my husband. After Kevin's death, I got an email from my mother-in-law, but it was inappropriate, so I didn't reply. She was asking about the life insurance money and kept emailing because I didn't respond. Eventually, she claimed she had a right to it. I chose to ignore it because I wasn't ready to deal with that. When we got home, I noticed a light on inside, which was odd. My mother, Sarah, was confused and thought we had turned off all the lights. I figured maybe I forgot because I was so upset. I told her it was understandable given the situation, and I unlocked the door. When we entered, we could hear the TV, which was very strange. Inside, we found my sister-in-law and her husband sitting there. I was so shocked I couldn't even speak up. The living room was full of unfamiliar furniture and boxes. We had no idea what was happening. My sister-in-law said, "Why did you just barge in here?" "Well, it's your first time, so I'll let it slide. We're taking this house. We sold your stuff, so leave." My mother and I were completely shocked. I asked where our furniture and belongings had gone, and she casually said a resale company came and took everything, claiming we had good furniture and they got a good price for it. They bought new furniture with that money, saying who wants furniture that a dead person used as its bad luck. She added that she cared about such things, and our stuff was packed in boxes. She even remarked that we must be minimalists or just poor because we had so few things. The furniture was carefully chosen by my husband, and I couldn't forgive them for this. My mom was furious too, her face turning beet red, but she was too shocked to respond. I immediately called the resale company. After explaining the situation, they agreed to treat the items as stolen and return them. Now that my husband is gone, dealing with this was the last thing I needed. I don't want anything to do with his family, but I do want to stay in the house that's full of memories of him. While I was wrestling with these feelings, my mother quietly said to me, "What do you think Kevin would say if he were here now?" "He might say we should leave. I'm sure he would." Kevin often mentioned, "It's good to spend time with people who understand you. But there are some people who will never understand, no matter how much you try. It's a waste of time dealing with those people." He was actually talking about his own mother and sister. I realized that if we stayed, his family would keep interfering. Acting on impulse, I signed a lease for an accessible apartment. My mom was surprised by how quickly I made that decision. I asked the resale company to hold onto the furniture for a few days, and it was moved to our new apartment 3 days later. In exchange for moving out, I made my mother-in-law and sister-in-law promise to cut ties with us. So a new life began for just my mother and me in the apartment. It turns out Kevin had many life insurance policies, almost obsessively so. He used to joke, always with a smile, "When I die, you guys will be rich." True to his word, he left enough money for my mother and me to be comfortable for the rest of our lives. Since he couldn't secure a mortgage when we bought the house, I, being employed at a major corporation, bought the house in my name. I made sure that even if something happened to Kevin first, I wasn't going to keep paying a mortgage for a house I wouldn't live in. According to our agreement, the house would be auctioned off if the mortgage wasn't paid for 4 months. Time flew by, and 4 months passed quickly. Then, I started receiving a lot of calls from my sister-in-law, Emily, and my mother-in-law, Maria. My call history was filled with their names, and it was getting scary, like something out of a horror movie. They were incredibly persistent, so I finally answered the phone. They were furious because the house was being sold. Apparently, when they tried to return to the house, they found out they couldn't get in because of a seizure notice. Emily and her husband had moved out of their apartment since Kevin passed away, and Emily had also quit her job. I suggested they move back into their parents' house, since they were panicking about suddenly being homeless. Surprisingly, Maria had gotten so caught up in gambling that she couldn't keep up and had sold her own house. It turns out they had been living together for the past 5 months. I also heard that they sold their main source of income, a parking lot in front of the train station, a long time ago. Now, Maria and Emily's family are completely homeless. When Maria said, "I'm sorry for everything, let's get along, can you lend me some money please?" I replied, "I think it's best if you stay away since I'm a jinx. We're strangers now that we've severed ties." Maria was quiet after mumbling weakly. In my mind, I was thinking, who's the real bad luck charm here? Then, when I said I wouldn't lend them a single cent, Emily, who had been listening next to Maria, shouted, "You devil! Bring us the money right now." I am a devil and bad luck, so I'm going to hang up now. I replied and ended the call. In reality, I had involved a lawyer for the past 5 months to push for the auction of the house. I thought it was an unusual case, but apparently it's not that uncommon. The house was sold without any major issues, giving our family a moment of peace. We plan to find a new home with the money Kevin left us. Since it's just my mother and me, we don't need a big house. We'd rather prioritize security as 2 women living together. So I chose a condominium with minimal noise disturbance. I remember something my husband always said when we built our home. People can get energy from the sun, so let's create a place where the mother-in-law can enjoy her hobby of reading in the garden without feeling self-conscious. With those words, he had made a spacious courtyard for her. So I looked for a condo with a large balcony where she could enjoy her coffee and read. It's smaller than our previous home, but the room is spacious enough to house the furniture my husband proudly chose. The piece of land that was gifted to us by Kevin's grandfather was expansive, and the house sold for more than expected. With that money, we're moving forward. I recently bought a luxurious condominium with exceptional security features, a choice I'm sure would have comforted my always cautious husband, Kevin. The peace of mind that comes from living in such a secure place is invaluable, especially after the tumultuous experiences with my in-laws. Life has taken a dramatic turn since Kevin passed away. Amidst my grief, I've been dealing with the fallout from his family's actions, which, frankly, has been draining. Following the auction of the house, Kevin's mother, Maria, and his sister found themselves without a place to live. Despite their desperate attempts, including trying to borrow money from neighbors, they couldn't secure any financial assistance and ended up in public housing. Living in public housing, they continued their old habits, causing disturbances that have started to concern the community. For instance, they recently had a barbecue on their small balcony, an act that left many locals in disbelief, given the limited space and safety concerns. Such thoughtlessness seems typical of them and reflects the disregard they've always shown for others' comfort. Moreover, their financial difficulties appear to have led to frequent loud arguments that disrupt the nightly peace, an auditory testament to their ongoing strife. My sister-in-law's husband has since left, leaving just her and Maria to fend for themselves. Their situation is a stark contrast to the quiet, stable life I now lead with my mother. We're both 2-person households, but while my home is a sanctuary, theirs is a source of constant conflict and unease. It's become so disruptive that neighbors are banding together, hoping to evict them to restore some semblance of peace. It's a harsh reminder that no matter where you go, being a nuisance can make you unwelcome. Reflecting on these events, I realize how the phrase, "what goes around comes around," rings true. My goal is to live quietly and peacefully, distanced from the embarrassing turmoil associated with my former family. I believe Kevin watches over us, perhaps with mixed feelings about the chaos his family continues to perpetuate in contrast to the tranquility he loved during his life. As I move forward, my focus is on living a life that causes no trouble to others. I want to honor Kevin's memory not just through words, but through actions. He always advocated for a life well lived, surrounded by people who bring joy and understanding. Despite the unfortunate family dynamics he left behind, I'm committed to building a life filled with positivity and peace. The decision to buy this condominium wasn't just about finding a new home, it was about creating a haven where my mother and I could feel safe and secure. The quiet, the order, and the absence of drama allow us to enjoy each other's company and focus on the things that truly matter. It's smaller than our previous house, but every corner of this new space is cherished, every moment of silence savored. I've learned a lot about resilience and moving forward. The memories of Kevin, filled with love and laughter, inspire me every day. They remind me of the importance of living authentically and compassionately, ensuring that his spirit of kindness is carried forward. Living well is perhaps the best tribute I can offer to a man who gave so much and asked for so little in return. In this new chapter, amidst the serenity of our chosen sanctuary, I am determined to live not just for myself, but in a way that would make Kevin proud. Why did I receive a letter from my late mother-in-law? I was shocked as I looked at the envelope that had just arrived in my home mailbox. The letter was from my mother-in-law, who we had just buried yesterday. She had always been very kind to me since I married her son, and I loved her a lot. We often went out to eat, enjoyed shopping trips, and became close like friends, despite being different ages. Her sudden death left me heartbroken, and even after her funeral, I was still struggling to accept that she was gone. Getting a letter from her during this sad time was a huge surprise. I quickly opened the letter and found something unexpected. My mother-in-law had asked a temple priest to send me this letter after she passed away. The letter told me to find a secret compartment in the family's old chest and revealed a hidden door. It gave detailed instructions on how to open this hidden door and made it clear I should do this alone. Seeing that my brother-in-law, his wife, and their kids were all out, I rushed to my in-laws' house. Using the spare key, I went in and followed the instructions to open the secret compartment by myself. "It's open," I sighed with relief and looked inside. "My name is Betty, I'm 40 years old, and I work from home as a web designer. I married Kevin, who is 5 years older than me, 6 years ago. We met through a friend and are still very close. However, we haven't been able to have children yet. Both of us love kids and wanted to start a family soon after getting married, but it hasn't happened. I used to feel very sad about this, but there was always someone who was kind to me despite it all, my mother-in-law. Betty, don't worry so much. There's no need to rush," she would say. "Hey, how about we go to the new waffle place near the station for a change?" My mother-in-law always encouraged me and spoke comforting words. She was bright, kind, and caring, and I loved her deeply. She often helped me, and over time, I worried less about not having children. Though I still want children, I've decided not to go for intensive infertility treatments, but to let things happen naturally. Since my husband Kevin often travels for work, my mother-in-law and I usually go out to eat or shop together when he's away. We've grown close, just like friends, despite our age difference. She lives nearby with my brother-in-law's family, who have 4 children. Although she gets along well with them, my brother-in-law and his wife often insult my husband and me for not having children. "Betty, you haven't had any children yet. We have 4 lovely kids here. Being childless is unfilial. Cut ties with your mother-in-law soon," Lisa, my brother-in-law's wife, would say smugly, and my brother-in-law Brian would agree, saying, "Lisa's right." Well, Kevin has never been impressive anyway. Even if you had kids, they wouldn't amount to much. Initially, my husband and I would respond to such cruel remarks from my brother-in-law's family. However, since they never listened, we gradually stopped reacting and tried to avoid them as much as possible. They treat us disrespectfully but act very nicely in front of my mother-in-law. We haven't told her about their behavior to avoid causing her worry. One holiday, my husband, my mother-in-law, and I planned to go out for a meal together. When we arrived at my parents-in-law's house, she wasn't waiting outside as usual. "Is she not ready yet?" I wondered aloud. "She should be coming out soon," my husband replied. We didn't think much of it and waited. However, as time passed 10 minutes, then 15, she still didn't appear or answer her phone. I wondered what was going on with your mom. I started feeling uneasy and increasingly anxious. We rang the doorbell of my parents-in-law's house, but there was no response. We decided to use the spare key to enter. "Hey, Mom," my husband called out as he took off his shoes at the entrance, but still, there was no reply from inside. With a bad feeling, we quickly searched for my mother-in-law, and then we found her collapsed in her bedroom. "Oh my God," I exclaimed as I rushed to her side, and my husband immediately called for an ambulance. It seemed that my brother-in-law's family was out because no one else was at the house besides my mother-in-law. The ambulance arrived in about 15 minutes, and she was swiftly taken to the hospital, but unfortunately, she passed away there. It was a stroke. My husband and I were heartbroken by the sudden loss, and we cried a lot. Despite our grief, we knew there were many things to do, like preparing for her funeral. The funeral was to be a family affair, and my brother-in-law took on the role of the chief mourner. To honor my mother-in-law, my husband and I worked together with him on the preparations. However, even during the planning with relatives and discussions with the funeral home, my brother-in-law seemed reluctant and showed no signs of grief. He did his duties at the wake and funeral, but often he would call my husband over after talking briefly with relatives, and then abruptly leave, which offended them. During the post-funeral gathering with relatives, my brother-in-law was the first to sit down and refused to get up even when my husband urged him to greet the guests. He just sat there drinking his beer, and his wife did the same. So my husband and I went around, thanking the relatives for coming and sharing memories of my mother-in-law. Seeing his parents just eating and drinking seemed to set a negative tone for the gathering. My brother-in-law's 4 children were busy playing games, laughing loudly and playfully nudging each other, creating a mood that didn't seem right for after a funeral. None of my brother-in-law's family seemed sad about my mother-in-law's death. The other relatives noticed this and didn't try to talk to my brother-in-law and his wife. They just said goodbye and shared memories with my husband and me. Despite the obvious change in the relatives' attitudes, my brother-in-law's family didn't seem to care. They kept ordering more beer, talked about inheritances, and planned trips, even though we were supposed to be mourning. It was disrespectful, considering how much my mother-in-law had done for them while she was alive. I couldn't help but look at them with disapproval. The next day, my husband left early for some errands, and I was at home planning to check the mailbox for the newspaper. That's when I noticed a letter. Wondering who it could be from, I saw it was addressed to me. To my surprise, it was from my mother-in-law. Opening the letter in the living room, I found something unexpected. The letter said that my mother-in-law had arranged with a temple priest to send it after she passed away. It had instructions on how to open a hidden compartment in a chest and the contact details of the family lawyer. There was also a note to make sure I opened it by myself. I read my mother-in-law's letter over and over. Though she was slender, her handwriting was bold and strong. I took a deep breath, touched by the strong strokes of her writing that reflected her strong character. Glancing at the clock, it was 8:20. No one should be at my in-laws' house now. The kids would be at school, and according to a social media post by my brother-in-law's wife, they had left early that morning. With this in mind, I quickly got ready to go to the family home. This morning I saw that they were planning an outing together. They even sent their children to school, even though it was the day after our grandmother's funeral. They seemed eager to enjoy their day off. If their post was accurate, there should be nobody at the family home. I realized I had to go now, or I might not get another chance. When I used the spare key to open the front door of my in-laws' house, I entered slowly. It was sad that my mother-in-law, who always greeted me with a smile, wasn't here. Holding my aching chest, I went into her room. The chest, an old piece that belonged to my mother-in-law, opened smoothly, perhaps because she took care of it. Just as the letter said, I found a hidden door at the back of a drawer. Thank goodness it's open. I sighed in relief as I managed to open it safely. Inside, there was another document along with what was written in the letter. What is this? I stared at the documents, feeling my mother-in-law's love and tears almost spilling. I felt like staying there and crying, but I had to leave quickly. It wouldn't be good if someone came back and saw me, especially since the letter said to do this alone. After returning home with all the documents, I contacted the family lawyer mentioned in the letter to inform them of my mother-in-law's passing. Just as I was about to reach out to my husband and my brother-in-law's family, To see if we could all gather this weekend, I received an email. It was from my sister-in-law, urging us to meet at my in-laws' house this weekend for some important news. Despite feeling uneasy, declining seemed odd, so I agreed to her proposal. Over the weekend, I went to my in-laws' house with my husband, feeling nervous about the discussion. My brother-in-law and his wife had smug looks, and their 4 children were not around, probably taken somewhere else. As soon as we sat down, they presented a document. "This is the will left by my mother-in-law," my sister-in-law announced loudly. The signature on the will was indeed my mother-in-law's, and it stated that all assets would go to my brother-in-law and his wife. "See, it's written here that we get everything, so unfortunately, you won't get any inheritance." "Too bad, huh?" My brother-in-law laughed mockingly, his expression ugly, while my husband looked bewildered. I stood up quietly and brought in the lawyer who had been waiting outside. "Ah, who is this?" my brother-in-law and his wife asked, puzzled by the sudden appearance of the lawyer. My husband, who didn't know the lawyer was there, was also surprised. "This person is the lawyer whom my mother-in-law trusted during her life," I explained briefly. My brother-in-law and his wife looked confused and then angry. "Why did you bring a lawyer here?" they demanded. "It's part of my mother-in-law's instructions. She wanted the lawyer here to help make sure the estate is divided fairly," I said. My brother-in-law and his wife insisted loudly that they didn't need a lawyer. My brother-in-law slammed his hand on the desk and pointed at the will, saying, "My mother left a will. We don't need a lawyer." The lawyer quietly raised his hand and asked, "Are you sure your mother wrote the entire will herself?" "That's obvious," my brother-in-law shouted back. The lawyer looked concerned and shook his head. "This can't be recognized as a valid will. A real handwritten will must be entirely written by the person it belongs to." He pointed out that only the words at the beginning and the signature at the end were in my mother-in-law's handwriting. The rest looked like it was printed from a computer. The room went quiet. My brother-in-law reached out to the will, but it still showed the same printed words. "Huh," suddenly my husband said. "Why is the back of the paper so clean?" I looked closely, and indeed, there was something odd. The handwriting in the signature section is different from the rest. Could this will be forged? I wondered aloud. My brother-in-law and his wife trembled at the lawyer's observation. "What are you talking about? We wouldn't do such a thing," they stammered. "Why are you so nervous if it's not forged?" the lawyer cut in. "Forging a will is a serious crime." Hearing this, my brother-in-law and his wife turned pale. Despite their agitated and confused excuses, the lawyer delivered the final blow. "Betty has a notarized will, so your will is invalid." "What?" my brother-in-law and his wife gasped, their eyes wide. "We never heard of that," they said. In the letter I received from my mother-in-law, she mentioned that she hid a notarized will behind the hidden door of the chest. We didn't know about this earlier. The letter not only told us where she hid the will, but also explained why she made it and why she told me about it. My mother-in-law had been feeling her health decline and had prepared the will because she probably suspected that my brother-in-law and his wife might tamper with it. I thought she didn't know their true nature, but it seemed she had a sense of their greed. The notarized will stated that the assets would be divided equally between my brother-in-law and my husband. This surprised my brother-in-law and his wife, and their eyes went wide. Then my brother-in-law suddenly shouted, claiming he should be the beneficiary of our mother's life insurance as the eldest son. I calmly responded that the life insurance certificate was also with me, as per the mother-in-law's trust, and the beneficiary was me, not him. Inside the hidden door, there was not just the notarized will, but also the life insurance certificate. My brother-in-law and his wife couldn't believe it. They kept saying they knew nothing about this. The lawyer explained that changing the beneficiary of a life insurance policy doesn't necessarily require informing the original beneficiary. My brother-in-law was upset and slammed the table. My husband turned to me, anxious, and asked when his mom had entrusted these things to me. I smiled and explained that it was written in the letter from his mother. She had wanted to tell him too, but she was worried that if both of us knew, his brother and sister-in-law might become suspicious, so she trusted only me with the information. While my husband and I were talking, my sister-in-law burst in hysterically. She couldn't accept that we, who hadn't even shown her children to my mother-in-law, would inherit her estate. "This is ridiculous," she exclaimed. "I can't accept this at all," my brother-in-law chimed in, his face turning red as he shouted. "You unlucky bunch have no right to Mom's estate. We were living here just for her inheritance, splitting it equally. Don't make me laugh. The inheritance is all ours," he continued. My sister-in-law joined in, shouting and adding to his selfish claims. "We have 4 children. As compensation for you not showing my mother-in-law any grandchildren, you should give all of her inheritance to our children for their future. We have shown her 4 grandchildren, so we are much more deserving than you." Despite my sister-in-law's aggressive tone, I stayed calm. "What you're saying doesn't make sense. Please calm down," I said. My calm demeanor seemed to infuriate her even more. "Your calm attitude annoys me so much. Just give us the money already. You're a useless, childless woman," she yelled and lunged at me. My husband and the lawyer stepped in, but before they could stop her, my sister-in-law punched me in the head. Ouch! She had several large rings on her fingers, so it felt like being hit with makeshift brass knuckles. I cried out in pain. "Stop it." My husband and the lawyer pulled my sister-in-law away, but she tried to reach for me again in her agitated state. "Give us the inheritance. I deserve it all more than you do. I have 4 children," she shouted, her eyes bloodshot and her face twisted with anger. My brother-in-law egged her on, encouraging her to hit me more. Enraged, my husband called the police. When the police arrived shortly after, he and the lawyer explained the situation. My brother-in-law and his wife were then escorted away by the police. My husband and I thanked the lawyer and decided to send him home for the day. What was supposed to be a discussion about creating an estate division agreement turned into a chaotic ordeal. My husband and I agreed to bring a gift of apology another day. He was deeply concerned about me being hit by my sister-in-law, but seemed relieved when I told him the headache had completely subsided after the tumultuous events. I murmured, "It's been quite an intense time." Then my husband brought up something unexpected. "Hey, Lisa seems to constantly talk about the children. You know, she always boasted about showing Mom 4 grandchildren and how great she was. And don't you think she's overly fixated on money?" Indeed, my sister-in-law had been excessively promoting her children and seemed really focused on money during the earlier argument. "Well, she has been quite vocal about the children for a while, and her obsession with money was indeed extreme. Her expression while hitting me was terrifying," I replied. "Yeah, you're right. It's a bit abnormal," he said, and then fell silent. "What's wrong? Is there something bothering you?" I asked, not understanding what he was getting at. "Well, there's something bothering me, and I'm considering suggesting it to my brother. I think it might be a good idea to have DNA tests done for their 4 children." My husband's response surprised me. "DNA tests?" "Yeah, and I'm also thinking about proposing a background check on Lisa. Something doesn't sit right with me. It's just a gut feeling." Although I thought it might be unnecessary, my husband's intuition had been accurate in the past. "Okay, if that's what you suggest, let's propose it to your brother later on," I agreed. When my husband told my brother-in-law about the idea, he ridiculed and yelled at him extensively. "Just because you don't have kids yourselves, don't doubt ours," my brother-in-law shouted. But before parting ways, he took some materials about DNA testing from my husband. Perhaps he had some doubts as well. The first revelation came from the DNA testing between my brother-in-law and his children. It turned out that 3 out of the 4 children didn't share his blood. I was a bit suspicious of the youngest child because they didn't look much like any of us, but I was surprised about the middle one too. My husband was speechless, and my brother-in-law decided to investigate his wife's background thoroughly. The results were shocking. It turned out that my sister-in-law had relationships with multiple men, even before marrying my brother-in-law. Recently, her affairs were discovered by the wives of her lovers, who then demanded compensation. Since my sister-in-law was at home more often than my brother-in-law, she was able to hide any evidence like registered letters. The compensation demanded was far more than she could afford from her earnings or savings. It became clear that she was determined to get her hands on my mother-in-law's inheritance at any cost. Eventually, the situation escalated, and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law ended up in a violent fight, throwing things and hitting each other until the neighbors, unable to stand the noise, called the police. Both were taken into custody, facing charges for forging the will and now additional charges of assault. Further police investigation revealed they had committed theft and harassed wealthy individuals among other offenses. Eventually, they both ended up in jail. As for the future of the 4 children they left behind, my husband and I were deeply troubled. Since my mother-in-law's passing, we were the closest relatives. We considered taking them in, but decided against it after much thought. The children had been influenced so much by their parents that they casually insulted us as childless incompetents. The oldest at 19 should know right from wrong, and the youngest at 7 should understand proper behavior. Yet they smirked and insulted us every time they saw us, even with their parents in trouble. Our 16-year-old nephew said we'd be better off raised by childless idiots, which was more than we could bear. Facing such hostility, we couldn't find any affection for the children or any hope of raising them to be decent people. Ultimately, we contacted my sister-in-law's parents and decided to sever ties with the children. It seems the children understood our decision, as our nephew said, "I'd rather live in Grandma's old shack than with the brainless, childless couple." With those words, we felt it was best to leave things as they were. We haven't told the children that the younger 4 aren't biologically related to my brother-in-law. Whether we share this fact or not, we leave it to the relatives of my brother-in-law and his wife to decide. My husband and I decided to move to a distant place, using the inheritance from my mother-in-law to start anew. We moved to a place full of greenery and nature, where we quickly felt at home. There's a charming waffle shop near our house, and every time we pass by, we wish my mother-in-law could have visited it with us. Soon after the move, I found out I was pregnant. When the Prig-Betty test showed a positive result, I couldn't help but scream with surprise and happiness. Later, the doctor confirmed that I was indeed pregnant. Both my husband and I cried tears of joy as we hugged each other. My mother-in-law would have been so happy if she were still alive. Additionally, the business plan I had been secretly preparing is progressing well. Both my husband and I are working hard, looking forward to the arrival of our child and enjoying fulfilling days full of happiness. Today marks a significant chapter in my life as I stand in the comfort of my own home, surrounded by its walls that hold countless memories. Jack, with a beam of pride illuminating his face, welcomes me with open arms, his gestures mirroring his joy as he explores the spacious room with an enthusiasm that's almost infectious. We find ourselves in the heart of my family's abode, a place where my father's dreams took shape. Blessed with considerable wealth, my father poured his heart and soul into this home, transforming it into a masterpiece valued at an astonishing $100 million. This house stands as a testament to his dedication and passion, a legacy he entrusted to me before his departure from this world. Now, as I navigate through life without him, my husband asserts his claim over this cherished inheritance, suggesting that what was once solely mine should now be recognized as ours. Despite my insistence on its significance to me and me alone, he remains undeterred, armed with a smirk and unwavering confidence. Yet I hold on to proof, evidence that underscores my rightful ownership, documents bearing my name, Sarah, as the sole heir. At 42, my life is intertwined with the digital realm, thanks to my role at an online bank. This career path wasn't chosen at random, but was influenced by the values instilled in me by my parents. With their expertise in financial management, they taught me the importance of fiscal responsibility, lessons that have stayed with me into adulthood. Growing up in affluence, they ensured that I understood the value of money, urging me to appreciate and conserve it. Despite our financial standing, my upbringing was marked by modesty. My allowance hardly surpassed those of my peers, and lavish dining was an exception, not the norm. My education was rooted in the community, attending a local public school over an exclusive private institution. Yet, rumors of our family's wealth spread, painting a picture of a life filled with luxury and endless indulgences. Sarah, with your massive house and wealth, life must be a breeze, right? You must have all the latest gadgets and games. Can we come over to play? Such questions were commonplace, yet they couldn't be further from the truth. My reality was far from the opulence many imagined. Despite not having the most expensive toys or the newest game consoles, the assumption was that I lived a life of extravagance. I often found myself at the center of unwelcome attention, with peers perceiving my family's financial status as an opportunity for their gain. "Sarah, you're wealthy, aren't you? Could you lend me some money?" Such inquiries made me uncomfortable, highlighting a stark contrast between the perceived notion of my lifestyle and the values my parents worked hard to instill in me. In a twist of fate, I found myself in a tricky situation when I accidentally damaged Maria's gaming console. At the moment, my pockets were empty, and the timing couldn't have been worse. Around the same time, July and I had just started our journey as fifth-grade classmates. She questioned whether I had shared this dilemma with my parents, but the fear of their disappointment sealed my lips. "I can't tell them, they might get upset. That's why I'm turning to you, Sarah," she confessed. The thought of saying no weighed heavily on me, fearing it might lead to an uncomfortable atmosphere at school. However, my parents' firm stance on not lending money left me with no choice but to apologize to Julie for my inability to help financially. My refusal left Julie in tears, and it wasn't long before whispers began to spread. Accusations were thrown my way, questioning my reluctance to aid a friend in need given my family's financial stability. I found myself entangled in a situation that I had no part in creating, steadfastly explaining that my hands were tied due to a lack of funds. Amidst this, Maria chimed in with a judgment that stung, suggesting that I valued money over friendship. The situation escalated as Maria and Julie wove a web of lies around me, claiming I had borrowed money without repaying and refused to cover the cost of the broken console. The school's faculty soon untangled the truth, reprimanding Maria and Julie for their actions. Unfortunately, their warnings only fueled the fire, and the rumors spread like wildfire, eventually reaching my parents. In response, my father took it upon himself to address the matter, leading to a meeting with the involved families. Despite receiving half-hearted apologies, I chose to keep my distance from Maria and Julie thereafter, enduring their occasional mocking glances but no direct confrontation. That evening, over dinner, my father offered a piece of advice that I would carry with me for years. With a reassuring smile, he reminded me of the importance of standing firm in my decisions, especially regarding financial matters. "Sarah, always remember, it's okay to say no. You don't have to disclose whether you have money. If someone persists, just say you'll need to ask your parents, even though you know it's not permitted." This lesson on navigating financial disputes with grace and firmness became a cornerstone of my approach to friendships and financial interactions. As I moved on from elementary school and later graduated from university, I became more cautious about whom I invited into my personal space, focusing on building relationships grounded in character rather than material wealth. My career post-university was marked by a deliberate effort to steer clear of financial entanglements, dedicating my energy to my work and maintaining a private personal life. This experience taught me the value of boundaries, both in friendships and finances, shaping the person I've become today. At the age of 35, I crossed paths with Jack, who would later become my partner in life. Our meeting was orchestrated by a mutual friend, and despite Jack being a year my junior, his sincere and buoyant spirit quickly won me over. His candor was a breath of fresh air, and it wasn't long before our casual dating blossomed into a serious relationship. 2 years down the line, we celebrated our union with a vibrant wedding ceremony, much to the delight of my parents, who warmly embraced Jack into our family. About a month into our marriage, my father, perhaps sensing the depth of our bond, proposed the idea of having Jack over at our place. Although I had full confidence in Jack, I harbored some reservations about his penchant for conversation, fearing he might inadvertently divulge sensitive family information. However, emboldened by a month of marital bliss, I decided it was time Jack knew everything about my background. Thus, I extended an invitation to him to visit my parents' home. Jack's reaction upon stepping into my family's residence was one of sheer astonishment. His awe was palpable, a clear indication that the reality of my family's situation had taken him by surprise. The visit, although warm, left Jack with an insatiable curiosity about our financial standing, a topic he broached repeatedly during our journey home. My own knowledge on the specifics of our family wealth was vague, yet Jack's inquiries stirred a sense of unease within me. A few months into our marriage, I received a distressing call from my mother, informing me that my father was to be hospitalized. The news came as a shock, further compounded by the revelation of his recent health struggles, which until then had gone unnoticed by me. Reflecting on our last visit, I recalled my father's diminished appetite and frail appearance, which now filled me with regret and concern. Accompanying my mother to the hospital that Saturday, I was greeted by my father's attempt at cheerfulness, though his somber mood was unmistakable. His apology, for what he perceived as a burden to us, underscored his gentle nature. The subsequent diagnosis of advanced pancreatic cancer, with its spread beyond the possibility of surgical intervention, left us in a state of disbelief and sorrow. The notion that someone as health-conscious as my father could fall victim to such a cruel fate was beyond our comprehension. In the aftermath of the diagnosis, my father's resolve was touching. He expressed a desire for our happiness, a sentiment that moved us to tears. Resolved to cherish every moment with him, I found myself restricted by hospital protocols, which limited visits to immediate family members. My father's longing for the presence of friends and the creation of joyful memories at our home was a poignant reminder of the life he wished for us. Determined to honor his wishes, I pledged to uphold the legacy of our home as a place of warmth and joy, even in his absence. The promise to cherish our family home became a testament to my father's enduring spirit and the deep bonds that tied us together. Driven by a desire to fulfill my father's dream, I decided to renovate our family home, a project that became my solace and focus during a challenging time. Jack, ever attentive, expressed concern over how much time I devoted to my father in his final days, oblivious to the complexities surrounding our family estate that I had kept from him. When Jack inquired about my father's health, I confided in him about the difficult journey we were facing, finding some comfort in his support despite the whirlwind of work, hospital visits, and the emotional toll it was taking on me. However, tension surfaced when Jack's curiosity veered towards my father's finances and estate. His suggestions of involving legal advice to discuss financial matters, just in case something happened to my mother, too struck a nerve, dredging up painful memories. While my father had a trusted lawyer, Jack's insistence on being prudent about financial affairs began to create an emotional chasm between us. In the ensuing months, my father bravely fought his illness, but eventually passed away. The inheritance discussions that followed among family members led to me receiving a substantial house valued at $5.5 million. Jack's escalating interest in the inheritance, despite my attempts to keep him at bay, only intensified the strain. His excitement about moving into the big mansion and his intrusive questions about financial details took me by surprise, especially when I learned he had been informed by my cousin at the funeral, whose offhand remarks about the house being a waste if left empty only added to the tension. My explanations to Jack that the inheritance was not communal property seemed to fall on deaf ears, leading to an increase in hostility between us. Although he was present at my father's funeral, Jack distanced himself from the responsibilities and support needed during the subsequent memorial services and inheritance formalities. After some time, as life began to find its new normal, Jack revealed a shocking turn of events. He claimed to have changed the ownership of my family home into his name, presenting legal documents as evidence. This revelation not only breached the trust I had placed in him, but also underscored a profound misunderstanding of the boundaries and respect integral to our relationship. The complexity of navigating inheritance matters had unveiled deeper issues in our marriage, prompting a revaluation of our values, trust, and the future direction of our partnership. The revelation from Jack left me reeling, struggling to comprehend his actions. He bluntly admitted his fatigue from our relationship, suggesting we could coexist as housemates in the family home, albeit with me receiving minimal financial support. His ultimatum of divorce, if I resisted, was a jarring twist to our already strained relationship. In a mix of shock and despair, I implored him to reconsider his sudden decision and the unauthorized change in property ownership. Jack disclosed that he had sought legal counsel to facilitate the ownership transfer without my consent. The situation escalated to the point where divorce seemed the only viable resolution. Heartbroken and disoriented, I began to distance myself from the home and life I shared with Jack, attributing his betrayal to the corrupting influence of potential wealth. The following day, Jack's demand for the house keys, claiming ownership of my ancestral home, pushed the situation into further turmoil. His attempts to forcefully enter the property were thwarted by the timely intervention of security personnel. I presented the authentic ownership documents to the guards, firmly establishing my rightful claim to the house and inheritance from my father. Jack, confronted with the undeniable proof of my ownership, was visibly shaken. His misunderstanding stemmed from a supposed legal advisor named Jerry, who had promised to navigate the complexities of inheritance law on his behalf. Entrusting Jerry with a significant sum of $360,000 to alter the property's registration, Jack had fallen victim to a deceitful scheme. In the midst of this confrontation, Jack's emotions surfaced as he repeatedly attempted to contact Jerry, only to be met with silence. His frustration boiled over, denouncing Jerry as a fraudster preying on those blinded by greed. Jack then directed his bitterness towards me, criticizing my expenditure on what he deemed frivolous, questioning my understanding of inheritance registration and associated costs. Despite his attempts to salvage our marriage, suggesting we reconsider the divorce, the breach of trust and the depth of his deception were insurmountable. I requested the security guard to escort him away, closing a painful chapter of my life. In the months that followed, reflection and distance allowed me to process the events, reinforcing the importance of trust and honesty in the foundation of any relationship. The ordeal with Jack, underscored by manipulation and betrayal, served as a poignant lesson in guarding against the allure of wealth at the expense of personal integrity and love. On the solemn occasion of my father's first memorial service, held at our family temple, Jack made an unexpected appearance. Since our divorce, life had not been kind to him. Jobless, entangled in financial woes, and seemingly betrayed by those he once trusted, Jack cut a forlorn figure. His disheveled state spoke volumes of his plight, standing in stark contrast to the respectful solemnity of the day. As he attempted to express his apologies amidst tears, his actions inadvertently shifted the focus away from the memorial, causing a stir among my relatives. Despite his emotional turmoil, I found myself compelled to ask him to leave, a request that ultimately necessitated intervention by security. This incident, happening during such a poignant moment, left me with mixed feelings. Eager to move forward and distance myself from the shadows of our shared past, I decided to relocate from my parents' home, a decision that had been in the works. I settled into a new abode, severing my connections with Jack, who, despite everything, continued to visit the family property, now transformed into a thriving rental villa. My mother and I embarked on this new venture together, managing the villa that blossomed into a vibrant place of joy and respite for many. Jack, on his end, appeared to have embarked on a path of self-improvement, securing a new job and earnestly pursuing a fresh start. The transformation of our family home into a rental villa not only honored my father's vision, but also became a haven for guests from diverse backgrounds. The villa, celebrated for its picturesque setting and expansive garden, quickly grew in popularity, hosting an array of events from intimate weddings to joyous family gatherings. Managing it alongside my mother deepened our bond and immersed us in a fulfilling journey of hospitality and service. In time, the success of the villa enabled us to enhance its offerings, introducing a swimming pool, an inviting outdoor lounge area, and a playful corner for children. Our dedication to creating a welcoming and memorable experience for our guests solidified the villa's status as a premier destination, drawing travelers in search of tranquility and unforgettable moments. This venture not only allowed us to realize my father's dream, but also provided a platform for creating cherished memories, echoing the warmth and hospitality that he always envisioned for our home. While tending to the garden of our rental villa, a sense of profound satisfaction washed over me. The transformation of our family home into a haven where guests could gather, celebrate, and forge enduring memories filled me with pride. I could almost feel my father's pride in what we had achieved with his vision. This venture had not only turned his dream into reality, but also bestowed upon us financial stability and a newfound independence. The journey here taught me invaluable lessons about trust, money, and the resilience needed to carve out my own path, distinct from the shadows of my past experiences. In this journey of self-discovery, I learned that adversity could indeed shape a more resilient and determined future. News about Jack reached me through mutual acquaintances, indicating he had managed to steer his life in a positive direction. Securing a meaningful job and learning from his previous missteps, Jack's progress was a testament to the transformative power of confronting and overcoming personal challenges. Knowing he was doing well brought a sense of peace, affirming that both of us were on our respective paths toward healing and self-improvement. Ultimately, my father's dream served as a catalyst for growth, not just for my mother and me, but for everyone who crossed the threshold of the rental villa. It became a sanctuary where guests could experience joy and make memories to cherish for a lifetime. The success of the villa stands as a living legacy of my father's vision, constantly reminding us of the values of resilience, determination, and the profound impact of realizing one's dreams. Through this endeavor, we've created a space that extends beyond mere accommodation. It's a source of joy, a site for celebration, and a testament to the enduring spirit of dreaming big and working hard to make those dreams come true.
The worst betrayals always come on ordinary days. Mine happened on a Thursday afternoon in October, exactly 6 days after my hysterectomy, when I finally got to come home from the hospital. My name is Nicole, and I thought I knew what pain was after the surgery. I was wrong. The Uber dropped me off at the end of our long driveway. I noticed Wesley's car wasn't there, but his mother Caroline's silver Mercedes was parked in my usual spot. Strange. She hadn't visited once during my hospital stay. Claiming she had a cold, she didn't want to risk spreading. Walking hurt. Every step sent lightning bolts through my abdomen. But I managed to drag my overnight bag up the path, already dreaming of my bed and the pain meds I'd left on the nightstand. That's when I saw them. Wesley and Caroline stood on the porch like sentries. Neither moved to help me with my bag. "What's going on?" I asked, fumbling for my house key. "Why are you both just standing there?" Caroline's thin lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "That key won't work anymore." I tried it anyway. She was right. "Wesley?" I turned to my husband of 10 years. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "What's happening?" "You need to leave," Caroline said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "This house belongs to us now." The world tilted sideways. "What are you talking about? This is my grandfather's house. He left it to me in his will." "Wrong." Caroline stepped forward. "Wesley had the locks changed yesterday. We've packed your things." She gestured to a pile of garbage bags by the steps. "My clothes, my books, my life." "Wesley, please," I whispered. "I just had surgery. I can barely stand." He finally looked at me, but his eyes were empty. "You should have thought about that before becoming such a burden." "A burden?" The word felt like acid in my mouth. "I had cancer, Wesley. They had to remove my—" "Oh, spare us the dramatics," Caroline interrupted. "You've always been weak, always playing the victim. My son deserves better than spending his life taking care of an invalid." I gripped the porch railing as another wave of pain hit. "This is illegal. You can't just—" "We can, and we have." Caroline picked up my overnight bag and threw it down the steps. It burst open, spilling my medications across the lawn. "This house was never yours. It's ours now. Be grateful we let you live here this long." "Mom, maybe we should—" Wesley started, but Caroline cut him off with a look. "Don't go soft now. We discussed this." She turned back to me. "Leave, or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing." My legs gave out. I sank onto the steps, clutching my stomach. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Not our problem." Caroline's heels clicked on the porch as she walked to the door. "Come along, Wesley." He hesitated for just a moment, then followed his mother inside. The door locked with a final click. I sat there, surrounded by my scattered belongings, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Annabelle. "How's the homecoming going?" My fingers shook as I typed, "They changed the locks. They threw me out. I need help. Don't move. I'm coming." I looked up at my grandfather's house. My house, where I'd lived for the past 5 years, where I'd nursed him through his final illness, where I'd married Wesley in the backyard, under the old oak tree. Now I was sitting on the steps like a stranger, with fresh surgical stitches pulling at my skin and my heart breaking into pieces too small to ever find again. Annabelle's car screeched into the driveway 15 minutes later. She took one look at me and the scattered bags and started swearing. "We're calling the police," she said, helping me up. "No." I grabbed her arm. "Not yet. I need to think." She gathered my medications while I leaned against her car, watching the upstairs lights come on. I could see Caroline's shadow moving behind the curtains of my bedroom window. "You're coming home with me," Annabelle said firmly. "We'll figure this out." As we drove away, I caught one last glimpse of Wesley watching from an upstairs window. For a moment, our eyes met through the glass. Then he turned away, just like he'd turned away from 10 years of marriage, from his vows, from everything we'd built together. I didn't know it then, but that moment of weakness would be his biggest mistake. Because sometimes, when you throw someone away, you forget to check what they might come back with. And I was about to come back with everything. "You need to eat something," Annabelle said, sliding a bowl of soup across her kitchen counter. 3 days had passed since I'd been thrown out of my home, and I'd barely touched food. "I can't." I pushed the bowl away. Every time I try, I just see Caroline's face, throwing my medications down the steps. "Then eat, because you need strength to destroy them." Annabelle pushed the bowl back. Your stitches won't heal if you don't eat. She was right, as usual. I forced down a spoonful while she typed furiously on her laptop. Something's not adding up, she muttered. Harold, your grandfather, was too smart to leave loopholes in his will. He was one of the sharpest corporate lawyers I've ever met. Wesley said they found a way around it. My voice cracked. I should have seen this coming. All those late nights he spent with his mother, claiming they were organizing family papers. Annabelle's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Your friend Maria from next door just texted. Apparently Wesley's been throwing out your grandfather's old furniture, replacing everything with new stuff Caroline picked out. The soup turned to acid in my stomach. The antique desk? The one Grandpa used to write all his contracts on? I'm sorry, Nicole. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through old emails frantically. Grandpa sent me a copy of the will. He made me promise to keep it safe, said I might need it someday. When? 2 weeks before he died. I found the email, hands shaking. Here. Annabelle moved around the counter to read over my shoulder. The will was exactly as I remembered. The house left to me, clear as day. Wait. Annabelle pointed at an attachment I'd never opened. What's that? I clicked it. A separate document appeared, titled simply, In the Case of Betrayal. Oh my God, Annabelle whispered as we read. Nicole, do you know what this means? I did. My grandfather hadn't just left me the house. He'd left me everything, including controlling shares in Wolf and Cabot, the parent company of Wesley's employer. But the shares would only transfer to me if I was wrongfully displaced during periods of illness or vulnerability. He knew, I whispered. Somehow, he knew they'd try something like this. Your grandfather was a genius. Annabelle was already reaching for her phone. We need to call Genesis Long. He was your grandfather's business partner. He'll know exactly how to execute this. Wait, I grabbed her wrist. Not yet. I need to understand everything first. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd supported Wesley's career, the networking events I'd hosted at our home, the times I'd stayed up late helping him prepare presentations, the promotion party I'd thrown him last year, while Caroline sat in the corner criticizing my choice of appetizers. They think they've won, I said slowly. Let them think that for a little longer. Annabelle raised an eyebrow. What are you planning? I'm not sure yet. But Grandpa gave me this weapon for a reason. I straightened up, ignoring the pull of stitches. I want to do this right. My phone buzzed. A text from Wesley. Left some more of your things by the garage. Please collect them soon or they'll be donated. Bastard, Annabelle muttered, reading over my shoulder. No, I said quietly. Let him keep digging his grave. Each box he throws out, each piece of furniture he replaces, it's all evidence of what they did. I picked up my soup spoon again, suddenly hungry. Call Genesis, set up a meeting, but tell him to be discreet. I don't want anyone at Wolf & Co. knowing about this yet. What about the house? Annabelle asked. We could file for an emergency injunction. Let them have their moment. I finished the soup, feeling stronger with each bite. They think they're dismantling my life piece by piece. But my grandfather left me the tools to dismantle theirs. Annabelle studied me for a moment, then smiled. There's the Nicole I know, the one who graduated top of her class in business school before Wesley convinced you to focus on supporting his career instead. I forgot who I was for a while, I admitted, but they just reminded me. I opened my laptop, creating a new folder titled Renovation Receipts. What's that for? Annabelle asked. Every change they make to my house, every item they throw away, we're going to document it all. And when the time comes, they'll pay for every single piece they touched. Annabelle's phone buzzed again. Genesis can meet us tomorrow morning. I nodded, thinking of my grandfather's antique desk, probably sitting in some dumpster now. He'd written the codicil on that desk, planning for this very moment, protecting me even after death. Tomorrow, then, I said softly. Let's see what else my grandfather left me. Genesis Long's office hadn't changed in 15 years. The same leather chairs, the same wall of law books, even the same coffee mug my grandfather had given him sat on his desk. Harold knew this day might come, Genesis said, pulling out a thick folder. He watched how Caroline manipulated Wesley over the years, saw the changes in him. Why didn't he warn me? I asked, shifting uncomfortably. The stitches still pulled when I sat too long. Would you have believed him? Genesis raised an eyebrow. Love blinds us, Nicole. Even Harold couldn't save you from that. Annabelle leaned forward. Tell her about the shares. Genesis spread several documents across his desk. Wolf & Coers is the parent company of 17 subsidiaries, including Wesley's employer. Harold held 68% of the voting shares. Under normal circumstances, those shares would have been distributed among various family trusts, but the codicil changes everything. How so? I asked. By throwing you out during your recovery, they triggered the transfer clause. All shares now consolidate under your direct control. He smiled grimly. You own Wolf & Coer, Nicole. Every subsidiary, every division, including the one where Wesley just made senior vice president. The room spun slightly. That's impossible. Someone would have noticed. Harold was brilliant at hiding things in plain sight. Genesis pulled out another document. The shares were held in a blind trust, managed by my firm. No one at Wolf & Coer knows about the transfer yet. Not even the CEO. Mitchell Campbell, Annabelle supplied. I looked him up. He's been running the company for 20 years. And he's about to answer to you, Genesis said, if that's what you want. I stood up, pacing despite the pain. Wesley's been bragging about some big promotion celebration next week. Caroline's been posting about it all over social media. Perfect timing, Annabelle said. Nothing like ruining their party. No. I shook my head. Let them have their celebration. I want to do this quietly, professionally. Genesis nodded approvingly. I can introduce you to Julio Murray. He's our corporate advisor, handles all the major transitions. He can help you assume control without causing immediate panic. My phone buzzed. Another text from Wesley. Mom's redecorating your old office. Hope you didn't leave anything important in the desk drawers. They're still throwing out my things, I said quietly, acting like they've won. Let them, Genesis said, his voice hard. Harold used to say, the best revenge is watching your enemies celebrate their victory right before you show them it was always an illusion. What's our first step? Annabelle asked. Genesis handed me a business card. Meet with Julio tomorrow. Start the paperwork. Once that's done, we can begin transitioning you into power, quietly, legally, and absolutely. I turned the card over in my hands. Wesley always said I wasn't cut out for corporate life, that I was too soft. Wesley's an idiot, Annabelle snapped. You graduated with honors while he was still trying to figure out which end of a spreadsheet was up. Your grandfather knew exactly what he was doing, Genesis added. He saw your potential long before any of us. Even you. I tucked the card into my pocket and stood up. Thank you, Genesis, for everything. He walked us to the door, then paused. Nicole, Harold left one more thing for you. He handed me an envelope. He said to give it to you when the wolves show their teeth. Inside was a single photograph, my grandfather and me at my college graduation, both of us beaming. On the back, he'd written, Remember who you are, not who they tried to make you become. That evening, I sat in Annabelle's guest room, watching through social media as Caroline posted photos of my grandfather's house, my house, being modernized. New furniture, new paint, new everything, erasing every trace of the life I'd built there. Let them settle in, I whispered to my grandfather's photo. Let them think they've won. They'll choke on the taste of my ghosts. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Julio. Meeting confirmed for 9 a.m. Bringing full documentation of your holdings. Time to take back what's yours. I turned off my phone and lay back carefully, mindful of my healing wounds. In the darkness, I could almost hear my grandfather's voice. The best revenge isn't just about winning, Nicole. It's about winning so completely that your enemies realize they never stood a chance. Tomorrow, I would start proving him right. Wesley and Caroline thought they'd stripped me of everything. My home, my dignity, my power. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. "There's something else you need to see," Julio said, sliding a folder across his desk. We'd spent the morning reviewing company structures and shareholding patterns, but his expression told me this was different. I opened the folder and froze. Inside were surveillance photos of Wesley leaving expensive restaurants, holding hands with a young woman I didn't recognize. "Her name is Mia," Julio explained gently. "She's the daughter of our VP of Operations. The photos were taken over the past 3 months, while you were undergoing treatment." My hands didn't shake. I was oddly calm as I flipped through the images. Wesley and Mia at a hotel, at a jewelry store, having lunch in the company courtyard. "Why show me these?" I asked. "Because she's been promoted twice in 6 months, despite having no qualifications, and because Wesley's recent promotion recommendation came directly from her father." Annabelle, who'd been quiet until now, swore under her breath. "That's why he was so eager to throw you out. He's been planning his exit strategy." "There's more," Julio said. "The company paid for a luxury apartment downtown 3 months ago. Officially, it's listed as executive housing. Unofficially," he pulled out more photos. Wesley entering with luggage. Mia leaving early in the morning. I closed the folder. "So while I was having surgery, my husband was setting up his love nest with company money. Money that's now technically yours," Julio reminded me, "along with the authority to audit every expense, every promotion, every decision." I stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the Wolf and Cummer campus spread out below. Somewhere down there, Wesley was probably sitting in his new office, planning his celebration party. "How do you want to handle this?" Julio asked. "Professionally," I said, turning back. "We do this by the book. I want a full audit of every promotion and expense account for the past year. I want the board to see exactly how their money has been spent." "The board meets next week," Julio said. "We can have everything ready by then." "Good." I sat back down. "And the apartment?" "Lease is up for renewal next month." "Cancel it. But not yet. Let them enjoy their little paradise a bit longer." Annabelle touched my arm. "Are you okay?" "I'm better than okay." I pulled out my laptop. "I'm finally seeing clearly. Show me the company organization chart, Julio." He pulled it up on a screen. "Wesley's division is here, under operations. His new promotion would put him here." He pointed to a senior position. "And Mia?" "Currently in marketing, but there's a proposal to move her to operations, directly under Wesley." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Of course there is." My phone buzzed. Another Instagram notification. Caroline was posting more photos of my renovated house, bragging about her designer touches. "The promotion celebration is Friday," I said. "Will everything be ready for the board meeting on Monday?" Julio nodded. "Ready to be introduced as their new boss?" "Not yet. First, I want them to meet their new auditor." I turned to Annabelle. "Can you get me copies of every expense report, every lease agreement?" "Already on it," she said, typing rapidly. "One more thing," Julio added hesitantly. "Mia's been vocal on social media about her relationship with Wesley." He showed me her Instagram. My stomach turned as I scrolled through intimate photos, expensive gifts, romantic getaways, all time-stamped during my hospital stays. "She doesn't know about me, does she?" I asked quietly. "Based on her posts, Wesley told her you left him, that you abandoned the marriage." I closed Instagram and opened my email. "Draft a memo, Julio. Effective immediately. All executive expenses over $1,000 require board approval. All promotions are frozen pending review." "That'll get their attention," he said, smiling slightly. "Good." I stood up, ignoring the twinge of pain from my healing incision. Let them wonder. Let them worry. By the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. As we left Julio's office, Annabelle squeezed my hand. You're handling this amazingly well. What choice do I have? I watched employees hurrying across the campus below. They thought they could throw me away and start fresh, but they forgot whose name is really on their paychecks. My phone buzzed again. A message from Wesley. Hope you're settled somewhere. We're having a small celebration Friday. Your things from the study will be on the curb by then. I showed Annabelle the message. She started to speak, but I shook my head. Let him celebrate, I said quietly. Let them all celebrate. They think they're at the top of their game. I smiled, thinking of the board meeting to come. They don't realize they're standing on a trap door. The courier arrived at my house. Correction, Wesley and Caroline's stolen house. At exactly 9:00 a.m. on Friday morning. I watched from my parked car across the street as he rang the doorbell. Caroline answered, already dressed for Wesley's promotion celebration in an expensive new suit. I could see her expression change as she signed for the envelope, then watched her rush inside. How long do you think it'll take? Annabelle asked from the driver's seat. 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, Wesley's car screeched into the driveway. He must have broken every speed limit getting here from the office. He ran inside, still clutching his briefcase. My phone started ringing. Wesley's name flashed on the screen. Now? Annabelle asked. Not yet. I declined the call. Let them stew. We waited. 10 minutes later, Caroline stormed out, waving papers in the air and screaming into her phone. Even from across the street, I could hear fragments. Impossible. Lawyer. Can't do this. Another call from Wesley. Then another. Then texts started flooding in. What did you do? This is impossible. Please call me. We need to talk. Answer your phone. Now? Annabelle asked again. I nodded, answering the next call. Hello, Wesley. What the hell is this? His voice shook with rage. Immediate termination? Eviction notice? You can't do this. Actually, I can. Check the letterhead on your termination notice. See who owns Wolf & Co. now? Silence. Then, this is a mistake. Some kind of fraud. No mistake. Remember Grandpa's antique desk? The one you threw out? He wrote this contingency plan on it. Poetic, isn't it? Caroline's voice screeched in the background. Wesley must have put me on speaker. You little snake, she hissed. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I laughed. Like throwing me out after surgery? Or helping your son set up his love nest with Mia while I was having cancer treatment? More silence. Then Wesley. Quieter. You know about Mia? I know everything. The apartment, the promotions, the expenses. Did you really think nobody would notice? We can talk about this, he said quickly. Come home. We'll work something out. Home? My voice hardened. You mean my house? The one you changed the locks on? Check your eviction notice, Wesley. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises. You can't. I can, and I am. Oh, and Caroline? Those designer touches you've been bragging about online? Document everything you've spent. You'll be reimbursing me for all unauthorized changes to my property. Caroline started screaming again. I hung up. That felt good, Annabelle said, grinning. We watched as Wesley and Caroline argued on the front porch. Other neighbors were coming out now, drawn by the commotion. My phone buzzed with a text from Julio. Security just escorted him out of the building. His access cards are deactivated. Then another message, this one from Mia. Is it true? Did you really get him fired? I showed Annabelle the message. Should I respond? Not yet. Let her sweat too. We watched as Wesley stormed back to his car, the company car he'd have to return by Monday. Carolyn was still on the phone, probably with her lawyer. Want to deliver the final blow? Annabelle asked. I nodded and typed a quick message to my real estate attorney. Minutes later, a police car pulled up. They're here to supervise the eviction, I explained as Wesley and Caroline gaped at the officers. Make sure there's no confusion about the deadline. My phone was exploding with notifications now. Apparently, Mia had gone on a social media rampage, posting about Wesley's firing and their relationship. Corporate gossip channels were lighting up. Ready to go home? Annabelle asked. Not yet. I watched as Wesley and Caroline frantically started moving things to their cars. I want to see them pack. Hours later, I watched them make trip after trip, loading their vehicles with designer clothes and Caroline's precious decorations. The police officers stood by, ensuring everything stayed civil. Finally, as the sun was setting, Wesley looked directly at my car. He knew I was there. He walked halfway across the street, stopped. You were right, I called out the window. This house was never yours. He opened his mouth to respond, but Caroline yanked him back. They drove away separately, leaving tire marks on my driveway. I got out of the car, walked up my front path, and used my new key to open my front door. The house smelled of Caroline's expensive perfume, but that would fade. Everything fades, eventually, even betrayal. But revenge? Revenge feels like coming home. The local news was having a field day. I sat in Julio's office, watching the headlines scroll across his monitor. Corporate scandal. VP's daughter and married executive in illicit affair. Wealthy widow claims elder abuse after eviction. Wolf and Corn shares tumble amid leadership chaos. Mia's really gone nuclear, Julio said, scrolling through her latest social media posts. She's sharing everything, receipts, text messages, photos from their trips together. How's her father handling it? I asked. The VP? He's taking a leave of absence. Apparently he didn't know about the apartment he approved for them. My phone buzzed. Another desperate message from Wesley. Please. Mom's having panic attacks. We're staying at a motel. This isn't right. I ignored it, focusing instead on the document Julio had prepared. Is everything ready for tomorrow's shareholder meeting? Yes, but... He was interrupted by commotion in the hallway. Wesley burst in, security guards right behind him. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his eyes wild. Sir, you can't be here, one guard said, grabbing his arm. I need to speak to the board, Wesley shouted. This is all a mistake. I've worked here for 12 years. Let him stay, I said quietly. The guards looked uncertain but stepped back. Wesley froze when he saw me. What are you doing here? Meeting with my corporate advisor. I gestured to Julio. Planning tomorrow's board presentation. You're... what? Wesley's face went pale. You're behind the audit? I'm behind everything, Wesley. The audit, the termination, the lease cancellation on your love nest. I stood up slowly. Did you really think my grandfather would leave me defenseless? You don't understand, he pleaded. Mia's destroying my reputation. Caroline's had to move in with her cousin in Jersey. She's talking about suing you. For what? Taking back what's legally mine? We had a life together, he shouted. 10 years of marriage, which you threw away for a company car and a side chick named Mia. I nodded to the guards. Escort him out. If he returns, press charges. Nicole, please. Oh, and Wesley? I held up my phone, showing him Caroline's social media posts about my house renovations. Tell your mother I want receipts for everything she changed. My lawyer will be in touch about compensation. The guards dragged him out, his protests echoing down the hallway. That was intense, Julio said after a moment. It's not over. I checked my phone. Caroline's just posted that she's filing an elder abuse claim. Says I'm harassing a vulnerable senior citizen. Does she forget we have security footage of her throwing your medications down the steps? Apparently. I forwarded the footage to my lawyer. Let her try. Every false claim just makes her look worse. My phone buzzed again, this time from Mia. I didn't know about your surgery, or that he threw you out. I swear. She's been messaging me all day, I told Julio, trying to distance herself from Wesley now that he's toxic. Smart girl, he said dryly. Unlike her father, who approved over $200,000 in business expenses for their trips together. I stood up, gathering my files. Make sure the board sees those expense reports tomorrow. Every receipt, every charge. They're already asking questions. Mitchell Campbell's been in closed-door meetings all day. Good. Let them squirm. I checked my watch. I need to meet Annabelle at the house. We're documenting all the changes Caroline made. Need security? No. But keep an eye on Wesley. Men like him get dangerous when they're cornered. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a news alert. Breaking. Former executive arrested after altercation at Wolf & Co. The article showed Wesley being led out in handcuffs after trying to force his way into the executive floor. Well, Julio said, reading over my shoulder, that saves us some trouble. I gathered my things, thinking about Wesley in a jail cell, Caroline in her cousin's spare room, and Mia watching her career implode in real time. Tomorrow's board meeting should be interesting, I said. Julio smiled. Ready to meet your new employees? Almost. I looked out his window at the sprawling corporate campus below. First, let's make sure they understand exactly why their former golden boy is in handcuffs. My phone buzzed one last time. Caroline again. You've ruined everything. Are you happy now? I typed back a single response. No, Caroline, but I'm just getting started. Then I turned off my phone and headed home to my grandfather's house, where the ghosts of betrayal were finally beginning to fade. The boardroom fell silent as I walked in. 12 pairs of eyes followed me to the head of the table, where Mitchell Campbell, CEO of Wolf & Co. for 20 years, sat looking like he'd swallowed something sour. Ladies and gentlemen, Julio announced, I'd like to introduce Nicole Taylor, majority shareholder of Wolf & Co. and your new chief executive officer. Mitchell stood up, forcing a smile. Now, wait just a minute. The board hasn't voted. Check your bylaws, I interrupted, sliding copies of my grandfather's documents across the table. As controlling shareholder, I don't need a vote, but feel free to review the paperwork while I address recent concerns. Annabelle, sitting in the corner with her laptop, began projecting images onto the screen behind me. First image, please, I said calmly. Here we have $200,000 in unauthorized business expenses approved by our VP of Operations. Hotel rooms, jewelry, first-class flights, all for his daughter and her married boyfriend, my soon-to-be ex-husband. Murmurs rippled through the room. Next slide. The security footage appeared, showing Wesley's assault on the security guards yesterday. This is how our former senior executive handles professional disagreements. This is a personal matter, Mitchell protested. Is it? I pulled out more documents. Because our audit shows systematic promotion of unqualified individuals, misuse of company resources, and approval of excessive expenses. All under your watch, Mitchell. His face reddened. You can't just walk in here and... I already have. I sat down in his chair. You can clean out your office now, or security can do it for you. Your choice. He stood up, knocking over his water glass. This is ridiculous. I've run this company for... Into the ground? I suggested. Our stock has dropped 15% since the scandal broke. Would you like to explain to the board why you approved an executive apartment for a married employee's affair? Mitchell stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Now then, I turned to the remaining board members. Let's discuss the future of Wolf & Co. My phone buzzed. A text from the police. Wesley had been released on bail, with orders to stay away from company property. Ms. Taylor, one board member spoke up. What about the elder abuse allegations? Caroline Lee has been quite vocal. Play the footage, I told Annabelle. The security video from my porch began playing, showing Caroline throwing my medical supplies down the steps while I struggled with surgical stitches. Any other questions about Caroline's credibility? Silence. Good, because I'm calling a press conference in 1 hour. We're going to address everything: the corruption, the misuse of funds, the nepotism. Complete transparency. That could damage the company's reputation, someone protested. No, I corrected. Hiding it would damage our reputation. Addressing it head-on shows we're serious about corporate reform. My phone buzzed again. Mia, asking to meet. I ignored it. 1 hour, I repeated, standing up. I suggest you all prepare statements supporting the leadership transition, unless anyone else wants to explain their role in Wesley's creative accounting. They filed out quickly, leaving me alone with Annabelle and Julio. That went well, Annabelle said, grinning. It's not over. I checked my phone again. Dozens of missed calls from Wesley, Caroline, and now Mitchell. The press conference is the real test. An hour later, I stood before a sea of reporters. Camera flashes popped as I approached the podium. Good morning, I began. My name is Nicole Taylor. Some of you may know me as the woman recently thrown out of her home while recovering from cancer surgery. Others may know me as the wife Wesley Lee betrayed while misusing corporate funds. Today, I'm here as the new CEO of Wolf & Co., and I have something to say about power, corruption, and consequences. The cameras went crazy. 2 weeks ago, I was considered disposable. Today, I control one of the largest corporations in this city. The difference isn't just about money or shares. It's about integrity, about doing what's right. Movement at the back of the room caught my eye. Wesley had slipped in, watching with a strange expression. To those who abuse power, whether corporate or personal, your time is up. To those who enable such abuse through silence or compliance, your time is up too. Wolf & Co. is entering a new era of transparency and accountability. Wesley turned and walked out. I continued speaking, outlining our new corporate governance policies, but part of me wondered if he finally understood what he'd lost. After the press conference, Julio handed me a note. From your grandfather's old office. Inside was a simple message. The measure of power isn't in how you get it, but in how you use it. Make it count. I folded the note carefully and put it in my pocket. The reporters were still shouting questions, the photographers still snapping pictures. But for the first time since this all began, I felt the weight of victory and wondered if it was heavier than I'd expected. The autumn wind scattered leaves across my grandfather's grave as I placed fresh flowers beside his headstone. Next to them, I set down a copy of today's newspaper, its headline bold against the marble. Wolf & Co. soars under new leadership. I did it, Grandpa, I said quietly, though maybe not exactly how you planned. He'd be proud, a voice said behind me. I turned to see Genesis approaching with his own flowers. Harold always said you had steel in your spine. You just needed to find it. I found more than that. I touched the headstone gently. I found myself again. My phone buzzed. A text from Annabelle. Mia's here. Says it's important. I showed Genesis the message. He raised an eyebrow. Going to see her? Yes. She's carrying my husband's child. That makes it my business. At the coffee shop, Mia looked different from her social media photos. Smaller, more vulnerable. Her pregnancy was just beginning to show. Thank you for meeting me, she said as I sat down. I know you probably hate me. I don't hate you. I studied her face. I don't feel anything about you at all. She flinched. I deserve that. But I needed you to know. Wesley lied to me, too. Said you abandoned him, that you were emotionally abusive. And you believed him? I wanted to. She looked down at her coffee. It was easier than admitting I was the other woman. Why tell me this now? Because yesterday, Wesley tried to convince me to get an abortion. Said he couldn't risk a child connecting him to the scandal. Tears filled her eyes. That's when I finally saw him clearly. I thought about my own surgery, the children I could never have. The irony tasted bitter. What do you want from me, Mia? Nothing. I just thought you should know who he really is, and that I'm sorry. Really sorry. My phone buzzed again. Caroline had posted another rant about elder abuse. Below it was a comment from Wesley. "You'll regret what you've done to my mother." I showed Mia the post. "Still think he's the victim?" She shook her head, gathering her things. "I'm moving back home to Portland, having the baby there. Wesley doesn't get to take this from me, too." "Good luck," I said, and meant it. Back at my house, my real house, restored now to how my grandfather kept it, Annabelle was waiting with takeout. Guess what came in today's mail? She handed me an envelope. Inside was my divorce papers, signed by Wesley. And something else. A letter from Caroline's cousin in Jersey. "You should know, Caroline's been lying about everything. She orchestrated the whole plan to take your house, convinced Wesley you were holding him back. I can't stay silent anymore. I have proof if you need it." "Going to use it?" Annabelle asked. "No." I set the letter aside. "Let them live with what they've done. I'm done fighting their battles." Speaking of battles, Annabelle pointed to my laptop, where an email from Julio waited. "Board meeting tomorrow. Quarterly profits up 25%. Mitchell Campbell just announced his retirement to spend time with family. P.S. Wesley's company car was just repossessed. Thought you'd want to know." I closed the laptop, smiling. Karma really is a patient accountant. "Patient and thorough," Annabelle agreed. "Want to watch them tow his precious BMW?" "No." I walked to my grandfather's study, my study now, and sat at his restored antique desk. The one Caroline had thrown out, that I'd tracked down and bought back. "I want to write something." I pulled out paper and began. "Dear Grandpa, you protected me even after you were gone, gave me the weapons to fight back when I was at my weakest. But the real gift wasn't the shares, or the house, or even the satisfaction of justice. It was remembering who I am. They thought they were destroying me, but they were just burning away everything that wasn't really me. Everything I'd compromised to make Wesley happy. Every boundary I'd let Caroline cross. In destroying the home they took from me, I built the woman no one will ever silence again. Thank you for seeing that woman, even before I could. Love, Nicole." I sealed the letter and turned to Annabelle. "Want to visit the cemetery again?" She smiled, understanding. "To say goodbye?" "No." I picked up my keys. My keys to my house, my company, my life. To say hello to whatever comes next. Because that's the thing about revenge. It's not really about destroying your enemies. It's about rebuilding yourself from the ashes they left behind. And I was just getting started.
I remember the day I met Jack as if it was yesterday. I was sitting in a small, cozy cafe, drinking the cheapest coffee they offered and trying to organize my thoughts and plans. Then he walked in, like something out of a movie, though there were no dramatic lights or music, just the sound of the bell over the door and the scent of old coffee mixed with his aftershave. "Is this seat taken?" he asked, pointing to the chair opposite me with a charming smile. "Looks free to me," I replied, trying to act cool and not show how surprised I was by his sudden arrival. We started chatting, and it felt like we were made for each other. He liked all the same things I did, from binge-watching the same cheesy TV shows to debating the best pizza topping, and yes, it's pineapple, fight me on it. Soon, we were dating seriously, not just hanging out now and then. It was like I'd known him all my life. Before long, we were even talking about marriage. That's when the trouble started. His parents, let me tell you, were tough to deal with. The first time I met them, it felt like walking into a lion's den wearing a steak. They had a way of smiling while sizing you up, deciding if you were good enough or not. "So you're the girl Jack can't stop talking about," his mom said, her tone anything but friendly. "Guilty as charged," I replied, trying not to let her get to me. They quickly made it clear they wanted us to sign a prenuptial agreement. Now, I'm not after anyone's money, but I didn't like how they approached it. I'll sign your prenup, I told them, but on one condition. If one of us cheats, the cheater has to pay up $200,000. Jack looked as if I'd hit him with a fish. Babe, I'd never cheat on you, he said, looking serious. Yeah, well, my ex said the same thing before I caught him cheating, I said. So it was this deal or nothing. He agreed, and so did his parents, although they looked pretty sour about it. We thought that was the end of that issue, but we were wrong. One evening, we were snuggled up on our old creaky couch. We kept saying we'd replace it, but never did because it was our special spot. The TV was on, but we weren't really watching. We were too excited, planning a trip to Switzerland we knew we couldn't really afford, but were determined to make happen. Think about it, Jack. The food, the wine, the art. We have to go, I said, my eyes lit up with excitement. Jack laughed and hugged me closer. Linda, you had me at food, but let's be real. Our bank account is more suited for camping in the backyard than a romantic trip to Lausanne. I nudged him playfully. So we'll save. We'll cut back on things we don't need, like your video games. He pretended to be shocked. Not the video games. Take my shirts, my shoes, even my beloved coffee maker, but leave the games alone. We laughed together. That was typical for us, dreaming big but staying realistic about our simple life. And we were happy. Our joy wasn't just in big adventures, it was in the little things too, like how Jack would make breakfast on Saturdays. He couldn't really cook, but he had somehow mastered scrambled eggs and toast, which he'd serve with his terrible coffee. I loved those mornings. Hey, I'm thinking scrambled eggs today. What do you think? He'd ask, already heading to the kitchen. Only if you promise not to burn the toast this time. I'd shout back, adding, and I'm making the coffee. One day, while we were washing dishes together, a simple task that felt special because we did it together, Jack brought up a topic we had been avoiding. Linda, we need to talk about, starting a family, he said, breaking the comfortable silence. I paused, holding a plate. I know, it's just scary, isn't it? What if we can't? Jack turned to me, drying his hands on a towel. Then we'll handle it together, but we won't know until we try, right? How hard can it be? I laughed, feeling a mix of nerves and love. Famous last words, babe. But that's how we were. No matter what came our way, we faced it together. Even when his mom started hinting about wanting grandchildren every chance she got, we managed. Linda, darling, when are you going to give me some grandbabies? You're not getting any younger, she'd say. Her tone was sweet, but her words were sharp. I just bite my tongue, smile, and say, we're working on it, aren't we, Jack? And he'd jump in, yeah, Mom, give it a rest, will you? These things take time. But as the year went on, the pressure increased. It wasn't just from his mom, but from within us too. We wanted a family, but it wasn't happening as easily as we hoped. Since Sophia found her new hobby of making my life difficult, our home felt like a battleground, her sharp words the main weapon. It all came to a head one Sunday lunch, a day meant to be relaxed and peaceful. Sophia, with her usual timing, dropped by uninvited just as we were about to sit down. The air tensed the moment she walked in, her eyes scanning the room as if she was about to conduct a military inspection. Well, isn't this quaint? She started, her voice dripping with sarcasm as she looked at the simple meal I prepared. You really outed yourself, Linda. I can see you've been busy in the kitchen all morning. Her eyes met mine briefly, a smirk on her lips. Trying to keep the peace, I forced a smile. It's nothing fancy, Sophia, just something simple and quick. Please have a seat. As we sat down, she began her usual tirade. You know, Linda, Sophia said, her voice loaded with condescension. I was talking to Mrs. Charlotte the other day, and she mentioned how her grandson was just born. It got me thinking, when are you and Jack going to give me some good news? You're not getting any younger. I felt my cheeks burn with a mix of embarrassment and anger. I glanced at Jack, hoping for some support, but he seemed suddenly very interested in his plate. "Mom, come on," Jack finally muttered, but it was half-hearted, and we all knew it. Sophia continued, relentless. "I don't mean to be harsh, but you're not a charity. You work hard for your money. Why waste it on Linda if she can't do her basic duties as a wife? Hiring a cleaning service and a cook would be much more efficient, don't you think?" That's when I couldn't hold back any longer. "Sophia, I am trying my best here. It's not like I don't want to have kids. And as for the house and my cooking, I didn't realize marriage was a service contract." Sophia scoffed. "Well, it's not a free ride either. You have responsibilities, Linda, which you're clearly not fulfilling." The room was thick with tension, and I could feel tears starting to form. But what hurt the most wasn't Sophia's words, it was Jack's silence. He finally spoke up, but it wasn't to defend me. "Yeah, Mom has a point. Maybe we should consider getting some help around here. It would make things easier for you too." His words felt like a betrayal. It was clear I was on my own. Over the next few days, Sophia's visits became more frequent, and with each visit, her criticism got sharper. She'd inspect the house, pointing out every speck of dust or a pillow out of place. "You call this clean?" she'd scoff. "My eyes must be deceiving me because this looks like a pigsty." Then came the comments about my appearance. "Is that what you're wearing? You know, a wife should dress to please her husband. It's no wonder Jack is always so tired. He has to come home to this." I tried to fight back. "Sophia, I don't dress for Jack. I dress for myself. And he's tired because he works hard, not because of what I wear." But it was like talking to a brick wall. Sophia had made up her mind about me, and nothing I said or did would change it. Jack's lack of support was the biggest blow. Each night after his mom left, we'd argue. "Why won't you stand up for me, Jack? She's walking all over us, and you're just letting her." "Linda, she's old and set in her ways. What do you want me to do? Kick my own mom out?" "No, but I want you to be my husband, to stand by me, not her." It was clear this was about more than just Sophia's disapproval. It was about us, our marriage, and whether we were strong enough to stand together or let Sophia's criticisms tear us apart as the days turned into weeks. I realized this wasn't just a temporary issue, it was a full-on attack, and if we didn't act soon, there might not be anything left to save. Things between me and Jack had been cold since Sophia intensified her criticisms. But it wasn't just our home life that was under pressure. Jack himself had started acting strange, and it wasn't just because he was stressed at work. It was something more, something that made my stomach churn. It began with phone calls. Jack used to be open about his phone. We didn't keep secrets from each other. But then he started leaving the room whenever he got a call, and it was always the same caller ID, Paul Work. One evening, I tried to sound casual and asked, "Who's Paul Work?" Jack flinched, a clear sign he was nervous. "Oh, just a new guy at the office, asks a lot of questions," he said. But there was more. Jack, who was never into fashion, suddenly started caring about how he looked. The graphic tees and old jeans were gone, replaced by crisp shirts, slacks, and even cologne. "Since when did you start caring about smelling like a department store?" I joked one morning as I watched him comb his hair in a new style. He just smirked too quickly, just felt like changing things up. No harm in that, right? And then there were the late nights at work, which became more frequent. "Another long one, babe?" I texted, trying not to sound needy. "Sorry, this project is killing me." "Won't be late, I promise," he texted back. But it would be well past midnight before I'd hear his keys in the door. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. It followed me like a shadow. That's when I decided to hire a private detective. It felt like something from a cheesy TV show, but I had to know for sure. The evidence came in a plain brown envelope, as heartbreaking as it was conclusive. Photos of Jack with another woman, their closeness unmistakable, caught in moments that shattered our years together. But it was the recording that hurt the most. Their conversations, filled with affection and plans, made it clear they were in love, or at least he was with her. I sat there with the evidence laid out in front of me, feeling a cold realization. This was the proof I might need if we ended up in a tough divorce. The photos captured moments stolen from our life together, and the recorded words betrayed every "I love you" he had ever whispered in my ear. But I kept it all to myself, a painful burden I chose to bear alone. I wasn't ready to confront him, not yet. I needed a plan, a way to handle the collapse of our marriage while keeping my dignity. The following days passed in a blur. Jack kept up his act, and I played the role of the perfect wife, smiling on the outside while breaking inside. Our conversations became a careful dance around the truth, each word measured, every laugh forced. "Everything okay, Em? You've been quiet," Jack would ask, his concern sounding real. "Yeah, just tired, you know. Work's been crazy," I'd reply, the lie bitter in my mouth. It was just another ordinary day, or so I thought, until I overheard a conversation that changed everything. I was passing by Jack's office, the door slightly open, when I heard their voices. It was Jack and his mother, Sophia, and they weren't just making small talk. Their tone was serious, full of intent. "I'm telling you, Mom, I can't do this anymore. It's not just about the kids. I've lost all feelings for Linda. It feels like we're roommates, not husband and wife," Jack said, his voice strained and tired. Sophia's response was sharp. "Of course you feel that way. She hasn't given you a child. And what else has she really brought to this marriage? But let's not rush things. My 65th birthday is coming up, and we wouldn't want to miss out on a generous gift from her, would we?" The cynicism in her voice was like a knife twisting in my gut. They were using me, planning to keep me around just long enough to benefit from a generous birthday gift before casting me aside. "Exactly, dear. Just bide your time a little longer," Sophia confirmed, her voice dripping with malice. I stood there, frozen, feeling both shocked and angry. They were planning to push me out of the family as easily as making a grocery list. The pain was deep, but it ignited a fierce desire for revenge within me. They thought they could use me and toss me aside when convenient. I was determined to show them that I wasn't just a pawn in their twisted game. A few days later, during a family dinner that felt more like an act than a meal, Sophia brought up her upcoming birthday with a smirk I had grown to hate. She leaned in and asked, "So Linda, dear, what are you planning for my birthday? Something special, I hope." I looked at her calmly and said, "Actually, Sophia, I was thinking of hosting a dinner at the city's most luxurious restaurant, a night you won't forget." Her eyes lit up with greed, and she shared a quick, satisfied glance with Jack. They thought they had cornered me, but they didn't know I was already 2 steps ahead. "Oh, Linda, that sounds delightful. Just close family, you know? Keep it intimate," Sophia said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Of course, Sophia, it'll be our pleasure," I replied, the words tasting bitter in my mouth. The weeks leading up to Sophia's 65th birthday felt like a slow march to a big showdown. Every smirk from her and every indifferent shrug from Jack strengthened my determination. My plan was simple yet bold: host a lavish dinner as a supposed loving gesture, then drop a huge surprise. Like all good plans, the details were crucial. The night before the party, tension filled our home. Jack, unaware of the brewing storm, lounged casually on the couch, scrolling through his phone. "Everything set for tomorrow?" he asked, not looking up. "You could say that," I replied, my voice hiding the chaos inside. The day arrived, and as guests filled the lavish dining room we had reserved for Sophia's celebration, the air was thick with anticipation. My heart raced, not from nerves, but from the thrill of what was about to happen. Sophia, reveling in the attention, basked in the luxury of her surroundings. "Oh, Linda, you've outdone yourself. This place is exquisite," she exclaimed loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. As we all settled in, the meal went on with the kind of strained cheer typical of such family events. Laughs were shared, stories exchanged. Then, as the dessert plates were cleared, the waiter approached with the final act of the evening, the bill. He leaned in discreetly and informed us the dinner cost was $66,000. I handed over my credit card, unnoticed by most. Then Jack, with a forced smirk, decided to announce his decision. "Linda, I think it's time everyone knew. I'm tired of this, of us. I want a divorce." His words hung in the air like a toxic cloud, silencing the room. Before I could fully grasp what he said, Sophia, sharp and unforgiving, chimed in. "Well then, since that's out in the open, I think it's best you leave, Linda. We're celebrating family tonight, and well, you're no longer part of it." The room fell silent, every eye on me, waiting to see my reaction. But I didn't crumble. With a calm I didn't feel, I stood up, nodded, and walked out without a word. The cool night air felt like a slap as I walked home, the finality of everything hitting me in waves. By the time I reached his apartment, I had a plan. I packed my essentials, my numbness turning into cold resolve. This was it, the end of one life and the start of another. As I zipped up my last suitcase, my phone began to buzz. It was relentless, and I initially ignored it. But curiosity won, and Sophia's voice shrieked from the other end. "Linda, the payment didn't go through. You need to fix this now." The irony was sweet. In my preparations, I had blocked the shared account, knowing it would be the first thing Jack would try to use against me. "Oh, Sophia, that's unfortunate. But since I'm no longer part of the family, as you put it, I'm afraid you'll have to sort this out yourself." Her outrage was palpable even through the phone, but it sounded like music to my ears. The chaos that unfolded was a fitting end to the farce my marriage had become. I heard through the grapevine about the restaurant staff demanding payment, Sophia's escalating tantrums, and eventually the police arriving to calm the situation she caused. In the end, it was Jack and his relatives who had to scrape together the money to settle the bill, a poetic justice for the betrayal and humiliation they had put me through. The morning after the dinner felt like waking up after a storm. I had my plan, my resolve, and a set of divorce papers in my hand as I returned to what used to be our shared home for the last time. As soon as I walked through the door, the air was thick with tension, like it could be cut with a knife. Jack and Sophia were there, and they seemed like they had been arguing. Seeing me seemed to unite them in anger. "You've got some nerve showing up here after last night," Jack said, his face a mix of anger and disbelief. Sophia, quick to add her own harsh words, called out, "Ungrateful wretch. You've embarrassed us in front of the whole city." Do you know how humiliating it was to have the police calm me down? People were laughing, filming. I met their fury with a calm I didn't feel. Embarrassed? You think that's your biggest problem right now? I tossed the divorce papers on the table, placing the photos of Jack's infidelity on top. "You should be more worried about this." Jack's face went pale as he picked up the photos, with his mother looking over his shoulder. Their anger turned to shock, and then to panic as they realized what I had. "And let's not forget the prenup, shall we?" I continued, my voice steady. "You cheat, you pay $200,000, to be exact." Sophia's face twisted into a snarl. "You wouldn't dare. You can't do this to us." "Oh, but I can, and I will," I replied, my tone cold and final. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Jack changed his approach. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix it." I couldn't help but laugh, bitter and hard. "Fix it? You think you can just undo everything with a few words?" "No, Jack, it's done." Sophia, ever the manipulator, tried to soften her approach, her voice full of fake concern. "Linda, darling, think about what you're doing. This will ruin us." "That ship has sailed, Sophia. You should have thought about that before." Their begging turned to pleading, their words a desperate scramble to salvage what they could, but my mind was made up. I was done being the victim, done with their lies and manipulations. In the end, Jack had no choice but to borrow the money from his parents to pay me. As I left that house for the last time, check in hand, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. After everything that had happened, I was finally free. I used the money from Jack to make a down payment on a small but cozy place of my own. It's amazing how much peace you can find in a home that's all yours, where every corner feels like a safe haven from the chaos of the past. Life is quieter now, and I prefer it that way. I've got a job that keeps me busy, friendly neighbors who nod and smile, and a little garden that's all mine to take care of. But every now and then, I hear some gossip about Jack and Sophia. Just the other day, I was getting coffee from the local spot where people gather, and I bumped into someone from the old neighborhood. After some small talk, they leaned in, lowered their voice, and said, "Hey, have you heard the latest drama with your ex and his mom?" Their eyes were shining with excitement. I raised an eyebrow, curious yet detached. Can't say that I have, do tell. They seemed to enjoy sharing the news. It seems Sophia isn't too happy with Jack's new girlfriend. Word is, they're fighting like cats and dogs. Makes your situation look like a walk in the park. We moved on from the topic, but as I walked away with my coffee, I felt a deep sense of relief. There was a time when news like this would have upset me, but now it's just another piece of someone else's story. These days, my biggest concerns are whether my tomatoes will ripen before the squirrels get to them, or if I'll ever manage yoga without looking like a newborn deer on ice. Life's simpler, quieter, and so much sweeter on this side of chaos.
The letter shook in my hands as I sat behind the wheel. I could feel my mother-in-law's usual judgment pressing down on me from the passenger seat. I had found the letter in my wallet that morning. The envelope had my late father-in-law's familiar handwriting on it, simply saying, "For Karen. Open after." "Watch the road, dear." Lori's voice cut through my thoughts. We wouldn't want to end up in a ditch before reaching the estate. I'm Karen. For the past 3 years, I've been the black sheep of the family, the woman who, according to Lori, stole their beloved James from the future they had planned for him. In her eyes, he was supposed to marry someone better, someone more suitable. "The roads are completely fine, Lori," I said calmly, even though I wanted to snap back. The drive to the family estate was 3 hours long, and it already felt endless, and we were only halfway there. She adjusted her fancy scarf, a sign I had come to know meant another rude comment was coming. "I suppose you're used to these country roads," she said. "Still, it would have been more proper for James to drive me." "James had a board meeting, remember?" I replied, holding the steering wheel tighter. "My wedding ring caught the morning sunlight. He'll meet us there." The letter in my pocket felt like it was burning a hole through my coat, but I wasn't going to open it while she was watching. Nathan, my father-in-law, had always been different from the rest of the family. He truly saw me, not just my small-town past or my public school background, which Lori clearly thought made me unworthy of her son. "Did Nathan ever mention anything to you?" Lori asked suddenly, her tone sharper than usual. "About the will, I mean." I kept my eyes on the road, but my heart skipped a beat. "No." "Why would he?" She laughed in that fake, cold way that always made me feel like I was being made fun of.
"Oh, darling, I was just making small talk."
"Though, he did spend an odd amount of time with you during those last months."
"He was sick."
"I helped take care of him," I said, my voice harder than I meant. "Yes, well, someone had to. Betty was busy with the Paris office, and I had the charity foundation to run." She looked down at her perfectly polished nails, then added, "Still, it makes you wonder who might have influenced him." The tall gates of the estate came into view, and my chest tightened like it always did when we came here. This place never felt like home, no matter how often James told me I'd get used to it. As I pulled up to the mansion, I wasn't so sure I ever would. I saw Betty's Mercedes already parked in the round driveway. My sister-in-law was standing on the steps, talking seriously with Kevin, the family lawyer. Lauren let out a long sigh as she gathered her things. "Try to park properly, dear," she said. "The gardeners get so upset when someone messes up their precious flower beds." I waited until she stepped out of the car before I finally let myself breathe. My hand went to the letter in my pocket, But before I could pull it out, a sudden tap on my window startled me. "Mrs. Stevens," said Paul, an old family friend who had always been kind to me. His face looked worn with age, and his expression was hard to read. "May I speak with you before you go inside?" I stepped out into the cool morning air. "Of course, Paul. Is everything okay?" He looked toward the house, then back at me. "Adam left you something else besides the letter." He pressed a small key into my hand. "The study safe, behind the Monet painting. He wanted you to see what's in there before the will is read." "Paul, I don't understand." "Trust me, child. And whatever you do, don't let Lauren know you have this." He gently squeezed my shoulder. "You'll need it soon enough." As he walked away, I stood there frozen. The key felt hot in my hand, like a secret too heavy to carry. Through the windows of the mansion, I saw people moving around, getting ready for what everyone thought would be a simple will reading. But the way Paul looked at me, the weight of the key, and the unopened letter in my pocket told me this was going to be anything but simple. I took a deep breath and walked toward the house, knowing something big was about to happen. I just didn't know what. The study felt smaller than I remembered. It was full of family members, most of them avoiding eye contact with me. Before the will reading began, I'd quickly snuck away with the key Paul gave me. I opened the safe, but it was empty, except for a single note. "Patience, little bird. A." Kevin's voice suddenly rose above the quiet conversations. "Shall we begin?" He stood behind Adam's huge oak desk, looking every bit like the perfect family lawyer in his sharp suit. Betty walked past me and sat in the leather chair closest to the desk, shooting me a cold look. "Some of us have actual business to get back to," he muttered. James gently squeezed my hand as we sat down on the old love seat. He looked tired, probably from the board meeting earlier. As expected, Lauren had taken Adam's chair, a move that didn't go unnoticed. "Before we begin," Kevin said, adjusting his glasses, "I should mention that there were some recent changes made to the will." The room suddenly felt colder. Lori's perfect smile twitched. "Changes?" she asked sharply. "When were these made?" 3 weeks before Adam passed away," Kevin answered. He pulled a thick envelope from his briefcase. "Everything was properly signed and witnessed, I assure you." "Just get on with it," Betty snapped, checking her phone again. Kevin cleared his throat. "To my dear wife Lori, I leave our Paris home and a yearly allowance of—" I tried to listen, but the words started to blur. He read off the usual things. Art, houses, trust funds, all the typical things wealthy families pass down. Everything was going as expected, until— "And finally," Kevin said, pausing. His eyes met mine for a moment. "To my daughter-in-law Karen, I leave my controlling shares in Cohan Industries. This takes effect immediately." The silence that followed was overwhelming. "That's impossible," Lori said, her voice shaking with anger. "There must be a mistake." "There isn't," Kevin replied, showing another paper. "Mr. Cohan was very clear about this." Betty's face went pale. "She can't do that. She doesn't even know how to run a company." "I taught her," said a calm voice from the doorway. It was Paul. He looked both sad and proud. "Adam asked me to teach her over the past 3 years, while the rest of you were too busy to notice." James's hand went limp in mine. I looked at him, but his face showed nothing. "This is outrageous," Lori shouted, jumping from her chair so fast it made a loud noise. "She took advantage of him while he was sick and weak." "That's enough, Mother," James said firmly but quietly. "Dad knew exactly what he was doing." "Did he?" Betty asked with a bitter laugh. "Did you know about this, James? Were you part of this little plan?" I finally found my voice. "No one planned anything. I didn't know about it either." "Oh, please, stop pretending," Lori snapped, eyes cold. "You've been working your way into his favor from the beginning while we were the ones actually running the business. The business that's been losing money under your watch," Paul said as he stepped fully into the room. "Adam saw how you nearly ruined it with your careless spending and selfish projects." "How dare you?" Lori began, but Kevin cut her off. "There's more," he said, holding up another sheet of paper. "A letter to be read if anyone tries to challenge Adam's decision." The warning hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Whatever was in that letter, Lori didn't want it read. She slowly sat back down, her lips tight with anger. "Well," Betty muttered, picking up her expensive handbag. "I guess congratulations are in order, dear sister-in-law," Betty said as she walked out. "Just try not to ruin our family legacy too quickly." Lauren followed right behind her. I caught a glimpse of them sharing a look that made my stomach turn. James muttered something about needing fresh air and walked out too, leaving me alone with Kevin and Paul. "There are some papers you'll need to sign," Kevin said gently. "Also, there's an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning." Paul stepped closer, his voice quiet. "You'll need to be careful now, child. They're not going to accept this quietly." I nodded, my fingers touching the note I had found in the safe. Patience, little bird. Whatever Adam had been planning, and whatever was about to happen, I knew this was just the beginning. "I'm ready," I said, standing tall. "Show me where to sign." As I sat in Adam's old office, now mine, a memory came rushing back. It was a rainy Friday afternoon 3 years ago, when things had started to change. "Come in, little bird," Adam had called out as I brought him his afternoon tea. He was sitting in this very leather chair, looking out over the garden. "Tell me, what do you see when you look at all this?" he asked. I hesitated as I set the tea tray down. "I see something beautiful," I said, "but it's starting to fall apart around the edges." He laughed warmly, a sound so unlike his wife's fake little laugh. "Exactly," he said. "You see what the others refused to." A knock at the door brought me back to the present. Paul walked in, holding a stack of files. "Found these in Adam's private safe at the Paris office," he said, placing them on the desk. "You'll want to read them closely." I opened the first file and gasped. It was full of financial records, 2 years' worth showing money being sent to offshore accounts. "Lily?" I asked, even though I already knew. Paul nodded. "And Betty? They've been moving money through the charity foundation for years. Adam found out 7 months before he died. Why didn't he stop them? He needed proof, solid evidence that could hold up in court," Paul said as he sat down across from me. "That's when he started teaching you about the business. Through me. He knew they'd never suspect anything." Suddenly, the door flew open and James stormed in. "Were you ever going to tell me?" he asked, furious. "Tell you what?" I asked, surprised by his tone. "That Dad was secretly training you," he said. "That Paul was giving you lessons. That he wanted you to take over." His voice shook a little. "I'm your husband, Karen. We're supposed to be honest with each other." "I didn't know what the lessons were for," I said quietly. "Adam just told me that everyone should understand the family business. I thought he just wanted me to fit in." Paul cleared his throat. "Your father knew you had no interest in running the company, James. You've said it many times yourself." "That's not the point," James said, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Mother is already talking about fighting the will. And Betty has called for an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning. They're going to try to push you out." I picked up one of the files. "Let them try." "No, I mean it," I said firmly, handing the file to him. "Your father didn't just leave me the company. He left me the truth." James's face turned pale as he read. "This can't be real. Mother would never." "She did," I said. "And your sister helped her." Paul walked over to the window. "The foundation's finances are a mess. They've been stealing millions through fake accounting." A soft knock on the door stopped us. Kevin walked in, looking serious. "We have a problem," he said. "The private vault at the bank. It's been emptied." "What?" Paul turned around quickly. "This morning," Kevin said. "Lily had access." Kevin adjusted his glasses nervously. "Whatever was in there, the original documents, they're gone." "Adam kept the originals there," Paul said, his voice low. My heart sank for a moment, but then I remembered the empty safe and Adam's note. "Patience, little bird." He must have expected this. "It doesn't matter," I said, standing tall. "These copies are certified. And I'm sure we'll find a long trail of evidence if we look hard enough." James was still staring at the documents. "I can't believe they'd do something like this." "Believe it," Paul said. "Your father did. That's why he made sure Karen had the power to fix it. There was another knock, and this time Betty walked in without waiting. She stopped when she saw all of us together. "Well, isn't this cozy?" she said, smiling, but there was no warmth in her eyes. "Having a little family meeting without Mother and me?" "Just going over some interesting papers," I said, keeping my eyes on her. "About the foundation's money." I saw a small twitch in her carefully calm face. That was all I needed to know. "The board meeting has been moved," she said quickly. "It's now tonight. At 9. Don't be late, dear sister-in-law. Wouldn't want you to miss your first meeting as the controlling shareholder." After she left, James turned to me. "What are you going to do?" I looked at the files spread across the desk, then at Paul and Kevin. Adam had given me everything I needed. Now I just had to be strong enough to act. "I'm going to do exactly what your father wanted," I said. "I'm going to save this company," I told James, "even if I have to take down your mother and sister to do it." The sun was setting outside the office windows, casting long shadows across the room. In just a few hours, I would stand in front of the board and my family with the truth. Adam had trusted me with everything. I wouldn't let him down. The boardroom felt like a battlefield as I sat at the head of the long table. 15 board members stared at me, most of them with cold, unfriendly eyes. Lauren and Betty sat side by side, both looking angry and smug. "Before we begin," Lauren said sharply, "I move that we question the changes in company leadership." "The will has already been verified," Kevin said from the corner of the room. "Several times." "Still," Betty added, tapping her nails on the table, "we're concerned about Karen's ability to lead." I connected my laptop to the projector. "Speaking of ability, let's look at the Foundation's financial reports." "That's not on the agenda," Lauren snapped. "It is now," I replied, pulling up the first spreadsheet. "As the controlling shareholder, I'm adding it." The room went silent as the screen filled with numbers, lots of problems, strange transfers, and messy bookkeeping. I clicked through each slide, watching Lauren's face turn pale. "These records are incomplete," Betty said, but her voice shook a little. "Actually," Paul said, stepping into the room and making a few board members jump, "they're complete. The accountants just finished their first review." Lauren pushed her chair back. "This meeting is over." "Sit down, Mother," James said firmly. Everyone was surprised. He hadn't spoken a word until now. "Let's hear all of it." I clicked to the next slide. Over the past 2 years, about $50 million was moved from company funds through the charity foundation. That money was then sent through fake companies and ended up in private accounts in the Hawaii. "You can't prove this," Betty hissed. "Actually, we can," Paul said, dropping a thick folder on the table. Adam kept detailed records. He waited until he had everything before acting. An older board member, Mr. Ryan, cleared his throat. "Are you saying this is embezzlement, Mrs. Stephen?" "I'm not guessing," I said, looking straight at Lauren. "I'm giving you the facts. And these facts will go to the police unless certain steps are taken." "You wouldn't dare," Lauren whispered. "This will ruin the company's name." "Not if we handle it quietly," I said, placing both hands on the table. "Starting now, both of you will resign from all your roles in the company and the foundation. You'll return every stolen dollar, with interest. And you'll hand over your remaining shares to the company." "Or what?" Betty said, her voice full of poison. "You'll send us to prison? Your own family?" "Family?" I laughed, but there was no joy in it. "You've never treated me like family. And yes, that's exactly what I'll do." James stood up. "I agree with everything Karen just said. And before anyone tries to argue, remember, between her shares and mine, we have enough votes to make the decisions." The board members shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Ryan spoke up again. "Maybe we should take a short break to think." "There's nothing to think about," I cut in. "The documents are ready. Sign them now, or I'll call the FBI." Lauren's face twisted with rage. "You manipulative little—" "Careful, Mother," James interrupted. "Remember who's in control now." Kevin came forward with the paperwork. No one moved at first. Then, with shaking hands, whether from fear or anger, Lauren picked up the pen. Betty followed her, silent tears of shame running down her face. As Kevin checked the signatures, Paul stepped up beside me and gently touched my shoulder.
"There's something else," he said.
"We found proof that someone tampered with Adam's medicine during his last weeks." The room went completely silent. "That's a lie," Lauren whispered, but her face turned pale. "We've already told the police," Paul said calmly. "They'll want to question both of you." Two uniformed officers appeared at the door. Not company security, real police. "You planned this," Betty said, standing as one officer approached her. "You set this whole thing up." "No," I said softly. "Your father did. He knew exactly who you both were. This was his last gift, to protect the company and me from the real threats to his legacy." As they were taken away, Lauren turned back one last time. "This isn't over, Karen." "Actually it is," I replied, gathering my papers. I could feel all the board members watching in stunned silence. "Kevin," I said, "please hand out the restructuring plans. We got a company to run." After the room cleared, James stayed behind, looking at me like he didn't quite recognize me. "I never knew you had this in you," he said. "Neither did I replied. "But your father did." Paul returned with fresh coffee and a serious look. "Don't get too comfortable," he warned. "The hard part starts now. Running this company won't be easy." "Good thing I had a great teacher," I said, settling into my chair. "Now let's get to work." 2 weeks after that intense boardroom meeting, I learned just how deep the problems really went. Paul rushed into my office one morning, clearly upset. He usually stayed calm, so I knew it was serious. "Someone's been messing with the computer system," he said, dropping a stack of papers on my desk. "They're deleting records." I grabbed the top page.
"How?"
"We changed all the passwords." "It's coming from inside," Paul said, his face tight. "They're using Lauren's old login. Somehow, it still works, even after the system update." Just then, a knock came at the door. It was Ryan, looking uncomfortable. "Mrs. Stephen," he said, "there's a problem in the research department. The entire development team is threatening to quit."
"What? Why?"
"Their funding was cut," he said, shifting nervously. "The paperwork came in this morning, and it has your signature on it." I stood up so fast my chair rolled back. "I never signed anything like that." "That's not all," Paul added. 4 of our biggest clients called this morning. Someone told them we're about to declare bankruptcy." My phone buzzed. It was a message from James. "Turn on the financial news now." I grabbed the remote and turned on the TV. The headline hit me like ice. "Cohan Industries stock drops fast amid leadership crisis." "This is a planned attack," Paul said quietly. "They're trying to shake the company from all sides." I grabbed my phone. "Kevin, get up here, now. Bring every file on system permissions from the last 3 years." Within an hour, my office looked like a war room. Kevin spread documents all over the conference table. Paul worked with IT to track the system hacks. "Here," Kevin said, pointing at a signature. "This file shows that 2 days before Adam died, permanent system access was given to a list of executives, including Lauren and Betty." "But they're under house arrest," I said. "How are they still doing this?" "They're not alone," James said as he walked in. "Mother just called me. She told me to tell you. This is just the beginning." I slammed my hand on the table. "Get the head of IT in here now." 30 minutes later, a nervous man named Timothy sat across from me. "The permissions are locked into the system," he said. "We can't remove them without shutting down everything for at least 72 hours. "Then shut it down," I ordered. "Losing access for 3 days is better than what they're planning next." I turned to Paul. "How fast can we put emergency plans in place?" "Already working on it," he said, handing me a tablet. "But you need to see this too. The deleted files aren't random, they're targeting specific projects. All of them link back to something Adam started last year." I looked through the files. "Project Novarise?" I said. "I've never heard of this." "Few people have," Kevin said. "It was Adam's secret project, something about a new kind of clean energy." My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. It made my heart stop. Looking for Project Novarize? Check the summer house safe. Better hurry. Paul, I said, standing up. Come with me. James, stay here and manage the system shutdown. Kevin, start calling our top shareholders. Tell them we're handling the situation. The drive to the summer house took 30 minutes, but it felt like forever. This could be a trap, Paul warned as we pulled up to the quiet house. Maybe, I said, getting out of the car. But we need those files. The house was too quiet. I didn't like it. The safe was hidden behind a painting in the study, just like in the main house. My hands were shaking as I entered the code for the safe. Inside was just one USB drive and a small note. Insurance policy activated, H. Adam, Paul whispered. He knew this might happen. We both froze at the sound of footsteps downstairs. Back door, Paul said quietly. We slipped out just as voices echoed through the house. Back in the car, I plugged the USB into my laptop.
What I saw made me gasp.
Oh my God. The screen was filled with video files, dozens of them. They showed Lauren meeting with different company executives. They weren't just talking about stolen money. The videos showed them discussing spying on other companies, illegal trading, and even blackmail. This isn't just about stealing money, Paul said quietly. This is about control. They've been secretly running their own operation inside the company for years.
My phone buzzed again.
Another message. Now you know.
What are you going to do about it?
I started the car, my mind spinning. Call James. Tell him to gather the board. Emergency meeting. What's the plan? Paul asked. I gripped the steering wheel, thinking of Adam's careful moves that led to this moment. They want to play dirty? Fine. Let's show them how it's really done. The USB drive felt heavy in my pocket as we drove back to the city. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure. This was war. You can't be serious, James said, staring at me across our kitchen table that evening. A family dinner? I was typing invitations on my phone. Trust me, it's the perfect setup. It's insane, he said. Mother and Betty are under house arrest. The company is in chaos. And you want to throw a dinner party? Actually, Paul said from a spot by the window. It's smart. A neutral place. Witnesses present. And they won't see it coming. My phone buzzed. A reply from Lauren. How thoughtful. We'd be delighted. Their lawyers approved temporary release for a family gathering, I said, showing James the message. Of course they're coming, Paul said with a cold smile. They think they're still in control. The next evening, our dining room looked like a stage set for a final act. I hired professional security to quietly watch the exits. Kevin sat in the corner, pretending to work on his laptop, but really, he was recording everything. Lauren arrived first, dressed perfectly even with an ankle monitor. She leaned in and gave me an air kiss. Darling, she said sweetly. How brave of you to host, given the situation. Betty came next, her expensive outfit barely hiding her ankle monitor. Lovely home.
So charming, she said.
Please have a seat, I told them. Wine. You seem calm, Betty said as she sat down. Especially considering your company is falling apart. I poured the wine slowly. Odd, isn't it? Our stock actually went back up this morning. Lauren's smile twitched. Just a temporary change, I'm sure. Like your house arrest, I replied, smiling back. I sat at the head of the table. How are those ankle monitors treating you? I asked calmly. You smug little, Betty started, but Lauren gently touched her arm. Let's stay civil, Lauren said sweetly. After all, we're family. Speaking of family, I said, pressing a button on my phone. The dining room TV turned on. Let's watch some home videos. Their faces went pale as the first video started playing, Lauren, in her office, talking about insider trading with a board member who had since run off to Mexico. Turn that off, Betty shouted. Why? I asked. It gets even better. I played another clip, Betty meeting secretly with competitors, handing over private company information. Adam had quite the video collection. You're bluffing, Lauren said, her voice a little shaky. These could be fake. The SEC doesn't think so, I said, placing a folder on the table. They're very interested in these videos, especially the ones about Project Mesmerized. James, who had stayed quiet until now, leaned forward. What is Project Mesmerized, Mother? What was so important that you'd ruin the company to keep it secret? Clean energy, Paul said, entering the room. Technology that could replace fossil fuels. Worth billions if it works. If you hand those videos over, Betty said in a low, tense voice, you'll destroy everything. The company will never survive the scandal. Unless, I said, taking a sip of wine, we have a different kind of family meeting, one where you tell me everything about Project Mesmerized and the other things you've been hiding. In return, the videos stay private. Lauren gave a short, cold laugh. You're blackmailing us. I prefer to call it a deal, I said, pulling out another folder. Sign these. Full confession, full cooperation. In return, the videos never go public. And if we don't? Betty asked. I pressed another button. A new video started playing, Lauren discussing Adam's medication with someone off screen. I was trying to protect you, I said quietly. But if you push me, everything comes out. The room went quiet. Only the awful video played in the background. James didn't move. His face turned pale as he watched his own mother talk about his father's final days. You wouldn't, Lauren whispered. It would destroy James too. Try me, I said, sliding the papers closer. Betty grabbed the pen first, her hand shaking. You're just like him, you know. Adam. Always 4 steps ahead. He taught me well, I replied, watching as Lauren slowly reached for the second pen. Oh, and one more thing, I added. Project Mesmerized launches next week, under my control. You found the blueprints? Lauren's head snapped up. In the summer house safe, I said. Along with everything else we needed. I stood, collecting the signed confessions. Dinner's over. The officers outside will take you home. As they were let out, James turned to me. Did you really find Project Mesmerized? Better, I said, pulling out the USB drive. I found proof it works, I said. Your father had a working model. It's been powering the summer house for months. Paul let out a low whistle. So that's why they were so desperate to stop you. They wanted to hide it. I nodded. They wanted to keep the old money flowing, but Adam had different plans. And now? James asked quietly. I looked at the signed confessions and thought about how every move had finally come together. Now we build something new, something better. Just like your father wanted. The security footage showed Lauren and Betty being driven away, their faces glowing in the light of the setting sun. They had made their final move and lost. Now it was time to rebuild the future. Their future. My future. The company's future. One that would honor Adam's dream. The press conference for Project Mesmerized was set for 3 p.m. But at 2:30, everything went wrong. The prototype is gone. Timothy from IT burst into my office, pale and breathless. Someone broke into the summer house lab last night. I was already reaching for my phone when it rang. Mrs. Stephen? It was Lauren's house arrest officer. We have a problem. Her ankle monitor was tampered with. She's gone, isn't she? Yes, ma'am. And she left a message. Check the stock market. I turned on the TV just in time to see our stock price crashing. The news headline scrolled across the screen. Breaking, Cohan Industries CEO accused of corporate espionage. Leaked documents from anonymous source. They leaked everything, Paul said, walking into the room. But they changed the documents. It now looks like you and Adam were the ones stealing the technology. My phone buzzed again. This time it was from Betty. Did you really think ankle monitors would stop us? The press conference should be fun. Where's James? I asked. Right here, he said, walking in with a grim look. Mother just called me. She says they're going to the press conference with fake proof that you murdered Dad. What? I said, stunned. They faked his medical records, Paul explained. Made it look like you were the one messing with his medicine. I slammed my hand on the desk. Get Kevin up here now. And call Ryan. I want the whole board on a video call in 7 minutes. The next 30 minutes were chaos. Board members shouted on video. Lawyers rushed through files. PR teams scrambled to fix the story. The press conference starts in 40 minutes, Kevin reminded me. Should we cancel? We're not canceling, I said, standing. We're changing the location. Call everyone. Move it to the main auditorium at the estate. The estate? James asked, confused.
Why?
Because that's where Adam kept his real backup plan. I turned to Paul. The study safe, the one we thought was empty. What if it wasn't?
Paul's eyes widened.
You think Lauren took something from it? Yes, I said. The original confession videos. And I think I know where she hid them. I grabbed my keys. James, come with me.
Paul, hold off the press.
Kevin, call the police. Send backup to the estate. The drive was quiet and tense. As we pulled into the driveway, we saw another car already there. It's Lauren's, James whispered. They're already here. We found them in Adam's study. Lauren and Betty were tearing the room apart, looking frantic. Looking for these? I said, holding up a set of video drives I had taken from a hidden spot behind the safe, a secret compartment Adam had shown me months ago. How did you? Lauren turned around, shocked. Adam showed me all his hiding places, I said, giving a cold smile. That safe was a decoy. He knew you'd check it during the will reading. It doesn't matter, Betty snapped. We have enough to ruin you. With fake evidence. James stepped forward. Did you really think Dad wouldn't protect her? That he didn't see this coming?
He was sick, Lauren hissed. He was confused.
She tricked him. Actually, a new voice said. We all turned. Paul stood in the doorway holding a tablet. Adam recorded everything, including your talks about killing him. He pressed play. Lauren's voice filled the room. The medicine isn't working fast enough. We need him gone before he changes the will. James stepped back in shock. Mother, it was just business, she said coldly. He was going to destroy everything we worked for. No, I said firmly. He was going to reveal everything you stole. In the distance, we heard police sirens getting closer. It's over, Paul said quietly. The board already has the real documents. The press is on their way here, not downtown. Your little plan is finished. You can't prove anything, Betty said, her voice shaking. Really? I replied. I played another video, security camera footage from the night before, showing them breaking into the summer house. And the prototype? I added. That one's a fake. The real one is hidden somewhere safe, just like Adam planned. The police arrived, this time with federal agents. Lauren Cohan, Betty Cohan, one of the agents said, you are under arrest for conspiracy, corporate fraud, and suspected murder. As they were let out in handcuffs, Lauren turned to me one last time. You think you've won? You'll never be one of us. Good, I replied. I don't want to be. I want to be who Adam believed I could be, someone who fixes what's broken. The press showed up just as the police cars drove off. Cameras flashed as I stepped up to the podium. James stood beside me, ready. Are you ready to tell the truth about Project Mesmerized and the future of Cohan Industries? I asked him. James gave my hand a squeeze. Let's do it. I thought about Adam, about all the careful plans he made, and the trust he placed in me. Behind us, sunlight streamed through the study windows, casting long shadows on the floor. It felt like both an ending and a beginning. The truth was finally out, and with it came the chance to build something new from the ruins of the past. The autumn wind blew gently around the cemetery as I placed fresh flowers on Adam's grave. I held the morning newspaper under my arm. The headline announced Lauren and Betty had been found guilty. I wish you could see it, I whispered to the headstone. Project Mesmerized is changing everything, just like you planned. He knew it would, Paul said, walking up behind me. His footsteps crunched on the fallen leaves. The board meeting's about to start. They're voting on the expansion today. I gently traced Adam's name on the stone. Did you bring it? Paul handed me a sealed envelope. Found it in his personal things. It was marked for today's date. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a photo Adam and me in his study, taken during one of our early lessons. On the back, he'd written, "The future isn't about where you came from, little bird. It's about where you choose to fly. Mrs. Stephen, Kevin called from the cemetery gate. They're ready for you. The boardroom felt different now. The heavy tension was gone, replaced by quiet excitement. Ryan smiled as I walked in and pointed to the screen. Project Novarise has passed every goal, he said proudly. Our clean energy project has tripled the company's value. And the foundation? I asked as I took my seat. Completely rebuilt, Kevin answered. The new programs are actually helping people now, not hiding money in secret accounts. James gently squeezed my hand under the table. We had survived everything, and our marriage was stronger because of it. There's one more thing, Paul said, standing. The FBI finished their investigation into Adam's death. They found proof that Lauren had been planning it for over a year. The room went silent. In front of me sat Adam's old chess set, which I'd moved into the boardroom after taking over. I picked up the queen piece, remembering how he had taught me to always think ahead. The press is outside, Kevin said. They want a statement about the verdicts. Let them wait, I said, standing up. There's something more important we need to talk about. Adam left one last project. I continued. He called it Legacy. I handed out the folders I had prepared. It's a full plan to reshape the company, profit sharing for employees, honest investments, and a focus on doing good. Everything Adam wanted for the future. It's time to make it real. He wanted this future, but couldn't make it happen while dealing with all the corruption. Ryan adjusted his glasses as he read through the papers. This would change everything about how the company works. Exactly, I said with a smile. No more old money tricks. No more family power games. Just real business based on new ideas and honesty. The old guard won't like it, Paul warned, though he smiled too. The old guard is in prison, James reminded him. It's time for something new. The vote was unanimous. One by one, the board members walked out, each stopping to shake my hand. I could feel Adam's presence in the room. He had seen this moment coming and had quietly prepared me for it in 100 small ways. Ready for the press? Kevin asked, holding the door open. I picked up my papers, then paused beside Adam's old chair. From there, you could see the whole city through the windows, all the people we could help, all the good we could do. Actually, I said, let's hold the press conference at the Summer House Lab. Let them see Project Novarise for themselves. Let them see what the future really looks like. Outside, the autumn sun finally broke through the clouds, casting long shadows over the city. My phone buzzed, a message from the prison warden. Lauren wants to meet. Are you going to go? James asked, reading over my shoulder. I deleted the message without replying. Some chapters need to stay closed. Paul walked in with our coats. The cars are ready. The press is already gathering at the lab. As we rode down in the elevator, I thought about that first car ride with Lauren, how she looked down on me, never thinking I'd be the one standing here today. The letter Adam gave me that day was still in my desk drawer. Now I understood what it meant. Trust yourself, little bird. The nest was never big enough for your wings. What are you thinking about? James asked as we stepped into the lobby. I took his hand and looked ahead at the glass doors, where cameras waited. I'm thinking your father would be proud. Not just of what we've done, but what we're about to do. And what's that? He asked. Change the world, I said with a smile. One project at a time. The doors opened to camera flashes and reporters shouting questions. But this time, I wasn't an outsider trying to prove I belonged. I was right where I was meant to be, carrying forward a legacy not built on power or money, but on one simple truth. Doing the right thing is good business. Adam had always known that. And now so did I.
Kevin and Brian, though they were our sons, grew very close to Lisa. She misled them with lies, causing them to ignore us. After Lisa, Kevin, and Brian were asked to leave our home, my husband Michael suddenly passed away. When I told Kevin about his father's death over the phone, his reaction shocked me. He said, "Your dad passed away. You handle the funeral, Mom. I don't want to see the face of someone who kicked us out. We're having a great time here, so don't bother us. Just tell the relatives we can't come because of work or something." I was speechless. A week after the funeral, I got a letter from Michael addressed to me. He wrote, "Please read this without our sons knowing." As I read, I was filled with emotion. Lisa had caused so much trouble in our family, and Kevin and Brian didn't even come to their father's funeral. I couldn't let it end this way. My name is Olivia. I'm 56 years old, a housewife, and I also work full-time. I met Michael at a party for new employees at our related companies. I'm not much of a drinker, but I couldn't turn down the drinks I was offered and ended up feeling very sick. I was sitting in a corner, looking for a chance to leave when Michael noticed me. He started talking to me and even arranged a taxi for me. Later, I took a day off to thank him at his office. He was surprised to see me, but pleased. "Coming all this way just to say thanks. You're really thoughtful." We became friends, started dating, and eventually got married. We both longed for a warm family life. Michael had a tough upbringing, and I lost my parents when I was young. We believed we could be happy together, but living with each other brought unexpected challenges, mostly because of Michael's sister, Lisa. Before the wedding, I tried to meet her, but she was too busy. Our first meeting was at the wedding. Michael's parents had passed away, so it was a simple ceremony with just friends and relatives. Lisa drew attention in many ways. She wore a pure white dress that was quite revealing and had heavy makeup, like a stage actress, and wore lots of perfume. I tried not to show how upset I was, but Lisa either noticed or just didn't like me from the start. She didn't say hello and made fun of me. She said to Michael, "Couldn't you find someone better at your workplace? Having such a plain sister-in-law is embarrassing. But maybe she suits you, Mr. Super Serious." Michael looked like he wanted to argue, but a fight on our wedding day seemed like a bad sign. I said, "I'm fine, let's go get ready." I forced a smile and led Michael away. That was our awful first impression, but I didn't worry too much, thinking we would only see Lisa at family gatherings now and then. However, things changed dramatically. Soon after a short marriage, Lisa moved in with us because of her husband's cheating. She said, "My ex left, and I want to move out too." Our parents sold their place when I got married, so I can't go back to my parents' house. Can I stay at Michael's place for a while? Michael was clearly annoyed and said, "Why don't you rent an apartment? You got plenty of alimony, right? Just let me stay until I find a nice place." I want to take my time, not settle for a rundown house. But in the end, Lisa just showed up with her stuff and moved in without asking. The main issue was Lisa didn't seem to realize we were taking care of her. She acted like it was her own house, which was very stressful for Michael and me. Lisa would go out every night, sleep until the afternoon, and then spend the day lounging on the living room sofa, playing with her phone or just watching TV. This was her routine until she went out again after dinner. Sometimes I took a day off and stayed home, so I saw this was what she did every day. When I came home tired in the evening after working all day, Lisa would ask in a complaining tone, "Hey, is dinner ready yet? How long until it's done?" I would say, "In about 50 minutes." She would reply, "That long? Hurry up, will you?" She also made rude comments about my cleaning, saying things like, "You're not very good at this," or "You're cutting corners." I share the cleaning duties with Michael. He's tired too. Lisa told me, as a wife, you should be doing all the household chores. I didn't want to complain to Michael about Lisa because I didn't want to ruin their relationship as siblings. But he noticed that I was becoming unhappy. When Michael asked me about it, and I told him about Lisa's behavior, he got really angry. He told Lisa, "Don't overstep your boundaries. You're just a guest here." But Lisa just shrugged and said, "I'm just stating the obvious," and refused to help pay for household expenses. She said, "I'm still in shock from my husband's cheating. How can I work in this state? And you want to charge me? I can afford to pay for clothes and go out drinking." Lisa's attitude made both Michael and I very upset. My dream of a happy married life was turning into a nightmare because of her. Michael and I wanted to have kids soon, but it seemed like the stress over Lisa was getting in the way. We were even thinking about getting medical checks when I found out I was pregnant in our 6 years of marriage. We were so happy and cried tears of joy. Michael saw this as a chance to suggest Lisa move out. He told her, "We're going to need more space when the baby comes. Maybe it's time you move to your own place." Then Lisa asked me what I planned to do about work. I said I planned to return to work after a year of parental leave. She offered, "Well, I can look after the baby, but we plan to use daycare." I checked around and found out that all the daycares, even the unlicensed ones, had long waiting lists. A few months later, as my belly began to show, Lisa said confidently, "I'll take care of the baby until you get a daycare spot. I owe you, and I'll do it for free. It'll be tough on your finances if you quit your job." After discussing it, Michael and I reluctantly agreed to let Lisa help. I was very worried, but to my surprise, Lisa took excellent care of our newborn Kevin. She learned about childcare online, prepared his meals, and even took him to parks and community centers. She was so dedicated to Kevin, and it showed in how much he adored her. Even when our second son, Brian, was born 3 years later, Lisa's care didn't change. With Michael and me busy at work, we were thankful for her help with the kids. But as the boys grew older, they started to avoid us more. When we suggested going to the amusement park or having a barbecue for Brian's birthday, they would say, "Lisa already took us to a fancy place," or "We're going with Lisa to a high-end sushi restaurant." It was hard for Michael and me to see how excited they were about spending time with Lisa. Even after Kevin and Brian started elementary school, they preferred being with Lisa, even on weekends. They barely talked to us and acted like we weren't important, spending all their time playing games or going out with her. Things got even worse as Kevin got older. He openly showed he didn't like us, ignored us, and even made rude noises when we tried to talk to him. Once, when I told him not to eat while playing on his phone, he snapped at me, "Shut up, old lady." I was shocked to hear him say, "It would have been great if Lisa was our mom. She gives us money and takes us places." The boys even said being born to us was a mistake and that they heard from Lisa we didn't really want kids. That hurt a lot. I calmly explained that Lisa, while not working and just living off her alimony, wasn't contributing financially. Kevin dreamily said that Lisa's lifestyle was something to aspire to and added, "But she raised us right. Complaining about her seems weird." They even questioned if we wanted kids at all, believing Lisa's claim that we had them just out of obligation, which was not true. Michael and I always wanted kids, and Lisa had only offered to help until we found daycare. I was very upset and couldn't believe what Kevin was saying to me. He smirked when he saw how upset I was and said, "You guys are always so annoying, telling us to do homework and that we play too many games. Lisa says it's fine not to do homework and even stays up playing games with us until morning." I snapped back, "Lisa isn't responsible for your future. Your dad and I tell you these things because we care about you, even if it means you might hate us." "Yeah, right, you're just jealous because we're close to Lisa. How dumb. Maybe you shouldn't have let her take care of us." I felt like crying. When I looked up, I saw Michael at the doorway, his fists shaking. He asked, "Who do you think you're talking to?" "Oh, hey, Dad. Working late again today? Must be tough with such a small salary." The boys laughed mockingly, leaving Michael speechless. "Finally, you talk to us, and it's just to mock your parents," Michael shouted. "Stop being so loud," Lisa called out as she came downstairs to the kitchen, looking annoyed. "Getting worked up over what kids say is so immature." "It's because you spoil them that they're like this," Michael yelled. "I've had enough. Get out now." "What? I've been nice to my nephews, and this is the thanks I get. If you're going to stay, then pay your way," Michael said. Lisa puffed up her cheeks and finally agreed. "Fine, I'll leave. Happy now?" "Lisa, you're really leaving?" "No way." But Lisa quickly went to her room, packed her things in a suitcase, and came down to the entrance. "I've put my clothes in boxes. I've arranged for movers this weekend. Leave it until then, okay? Lisa, are you really going? Yes, take care. She smiled at Kevin and Brian as they saw her off to the gate. Then she left. But it was too late to fix the relationship between us and our sons. As teenagers, Kevin and Brian became more rebellious. Kevin quit his job within a month after finishing high school, and 1 year later, Brian quit his job after just a few days. They talked about starting a business together and made some questionable deals, spending their money from odd jobs in one night. After a big argument, Michael kicked them out of the house. When you get a job, come back. No way we'll ever come back to this place. And so Lisa, who had caused so much trouble in our family, and the sons she influenced, Kevin and Brian, left, and it was back to just my husband and me. I was worried about how Kevin and Brian were doing, but without the four of them causing chaos, I felt relieved at the end of the year. Just as I was about to leave work and head home, I got a call from Michael's colleague. "Are you Olivia?" Michael collapsed at work. He's currently in the ICU at the city hospital. I said I would be there right away. I tried to stay calm and drove to the hospital. At the ICU, I waited in the hallway until the doors opened and a doctor in a white coat came out. He looked sad as he told me, "We did our best, but I'm sorry. I was too shocked to speak." That morning, Michael had left for work as usual. We had talked about keeping our schedule open for our anniversary next month. Sure, the usual restaurant. I have a surprise planned for this year. I never thought that would be our last conversation. Everything felt gray and meaningless as I stood there. I decided to contact Kevin, Brian, and Lisa to tell them Michael had passed away. I left a voicemail and sent a message. That night, Kevin called back while he was at a restaurant. I could hear music and laughter in the background. As I tried to tell him about his father, my voice shook. Kevin laughed and said, "The funeral and stuff, I'll leave it to you, Mom. I don't want to see the face of someone who kicked us out. We're having fun here, so don't bother us." I could hear Lisa chuckling in the background. "Just tell the relatives we're absent because of work. Say hi to them for us." I stood in shock for a while, holding the phone. Were these really Michael's sister and sons? Feeling empty, I knew I had to go ahead with the funeral arrangements. I got in touch with Michael's family and the funeral home we usually use to arrange a family funeral. Saying goodbye so suddenly didn't feel real, and I didn't cry during the funeral. But as everyday life continued, the pain of losing Michael kept hitting me. While making dinner, setting up to record a TV show we watched together, or making coffee, I'd accidentally make enough for 3 or start talking to him before realizing he was no longer there. That's when I couldn't hold back the tears. A week after Michael passed away, I was watering the flowers when the mailman arrived. I took the mail inside, and among the junk mail, I found an envelope addressed to me. The handwriting was unmistakably Michael's. Overwhelmed with emotion, I opened it. The letter explained that he had asked a friend to send this if something happened to him. After expressing his thanks for our years together, one line stood out, asking me to keep this from our sons. Moved by the letter and realizing how much Michael knew I worried about the kids, I wiped away my tears and decided to take action. Lisa had hurt our family, and Kevin and Brian hadn't even come to their father's funeral. I was determined not to let it end this way. Michael's letter mentioned a package in a safety deposit box at a bank near the station, and he included a key. I went to the bank, entered the safety deposit box area next to the ATMs, and nervously followed the instructions. I inserted the card, entered the PIN, and a part of the table opened to reveal the safety deposit box Michael had rented. I used the key, found everything Michael mentioned, and took them with me. Later, I invited Lisa, Kevin, and Brian to my house. I decided to share Michael's inheritance with everyone important to him. With the promise of inheritance, Lisa, Kevin, and Brian came quickly. They had skipped the funeral but were eager for the inheritance, which showed their shamelessness. Lisa couldn't even wait while I was making tea. She blurted out, "Stingy Michael had an inheritance, Maybe he hid money because he was so stingy. Being stingy might not be so bad after all. I wonder if he put his inheritance in some account. I'm excited. Then she looked at me and smiled. You did the right thing telling your sister-in-law. Mom, stop beating around the bush. Is Dad's inheritance in jewels, maybe gold bars? As they all fidgeted, I smiled and said, before that, please listen to this. I put an IC recorder and Michael's cell phone on the dining table, which confused them. Is that Dad's cell phone? And what's this? An IC recorder. The kind used for investigating affairs? I see it on TV. Wait, did Dad have an affair? Kevin laughed mockingly, but his smile vanished when I pressed play. Kevin's voice came through, talking on the phone. Yeah, remember that old lady you met at our house? Lisa. She wears so much makeup and clings to me, calling me Kevin dear. It's gross, but she'll hand over money if you flatter her. There's a use for fools and old ladies. As Kevin froze, Lisa's face filled with anger. When the recording stopped, Lisa angrily asked, "What was that, Kevin?" He replied, "I don't know, a stranger maybe, or Dad recorded that voiceover." Lisa shouted, Michael was too tech illiterate to do something like that. As Lisa and Kevin argued, Brian tried to leave quietly. I quickly played the second recording. How much money did you get from Lisa? $33,000. Damn, I only got $3,000. What did you do? Gave her a bouquet of roses and a high-end bag for her birthday. Maybe I'll give her a fake brand next time. She can't tell the difference. Kevin and Brian laughed, revealing their true colors. She loves getting gifts from men, even though she's almost 50. She still acts young, falling for every compliment from men she meets at the bar and spending a lot of money on them. She's an easy target, really foolish. The brothers didn't hold back in their ridicule, even mocking her blonde hair and her unrealistic dream of marrying a young Korean pop star, which they found creepy. Amidst Kevin and Brian's laughter, the recording suddenly stopped. Brian, with a forced smile, defensively muttered, "Man, when did Dad record this? And to show it to Mom after he's gone, that's just mean. Pretending to be a good guy, but those are the ones you can't trust." Even now, they continued to insult Michael, which made me very angry. Before I could speak, Lisa yelled at them, "You dare mock people? Who do you think raised you since you were kids? Don't mess with me." "See, that's what's so annoying about you, always acting like we owe you," they replied. Kevin and Brian's laughter made Lisa's ears turn red with anger. "Now it's your turn, Lisa. Having a favorite bar to go to, that's quite nice, isn't it?" As I reached for the IC recorder, Lisa's face tensed up. Without hesitation, I pressed play. First, lively music and clinking glasses. Then Lisa's high-pitched voice came through. "That's right. I've had my nephews wrapped around my finger since they were little, fill their heads with all sorts of nonsense about their parents. Kids are easy to manipulate." "Oh, Lisa, you're so clever," praised the man. Proudly, Lisa responded, "I'm single. I need them to take care of me in my old age. Look at my nephew, handsome, right?" "True, they look like models or pop stars," the man replied, growing more talkative. "I dream of my nephews feeding me, taking me on amusement park dates, even changing my diapers in the future." "Oh wow, going into a facility? No way, if I'm going to be looked after, it's by handsome men only. Can't wait." I stopped the playback and looked at Lisa. With Kevin and Brian's intense gaze upon her, she turned away. "So both my brother and his wife had nasty hobbies, recording things secretly. You were gallivanting around so much, I heard from relatives and got curious. After all, the alimony from your ex-husband should have run out after 24 years, yet you remained unemployed. So I hired a private investigator to look into your background." I explained what had been recorded. "Lisa, you really are quite a character. No, not funny at all. Creepy, really. What do you think of us?" As the brothers cringed and hugged themselves, Lisa's eyes narrowed in anger. "Shut up. I doted on you, spent my time and money. What's wrong with expecting something in return? Oh, you mean this? I said as I spread a bank book on the table, making Kevin and Brian's eyes light up. Oh, is this finally the inheritance? Well, sort of, I said suggestively, glancing at Lisa, who looked nervous and sweaty, her eyes darting around as if looking for a way to escape. I turned to Kevin and Brian. Remember what I told you before? Michael cut ties with his father before we got married, remember? Kevin nodded. Our grandfather, Dad's father, didn't work seriously. He relied on the family fortune and racked up a huge debt, I continued. That's right, I added. Michael's mother worked herself to death paying off those debts, right, Lisa? Yes, Lisa nodded. So the inheritance Michael received from wealthy relatives, he kept it a secret and deposited it in an account for you four. We never heard about this. If there was money, why didn't he tell us, they asked. He planned to proceed with the inheritance once you started working seriously. But before that, someone used it without permission, I explained. Kevin and Brian turned to look at Lisa. No way, they said. Yes, I continued. Lisa had been taking Michael's bank book and seal without permission during his lifetime and withdrawing money. Kevin and Brian looked at the bank book, which now showed $300,000 down to $20 in 2 years. Hey, what did you spend it on? They demanded. Well, this guy convinced me there was a great investment opportunity. I thought I could double it and pay it back. I just borrowed it, that's all, Lisa tried to explain as she squirmed under their gaze. Kevin and Brian exploded in anger. Don't joke, that was supposed to be our money. Just $300,000 and you're making a fuss? Considering the effort I put into raising you, you should be giving it to me for free, Lisa shot back defiantly. This made Kevin and Brian even angrier, their veins popping on their foreheads, looking ready to confront her. But that wasn't all about Lisa. I sighed and spread Kevin and Brian's bank books on the table. You both started working right after high school, so the college funds were left untouched. I was going to give it to you once you started working seriously, but this too was meddled with. Seeing only a few pennies left in their accounts, Kevin tore at his hair in frustration and Brian almost cried. Damn it, woman, what you're doing is criminal. Yeah, we'll sue you, they threatened. Don't be silly, it's called family theft and doesn't count as a crime when done by a relative, Lisa replied, crossing her arms and legs and laughing annoyingly. I'll pay it back someday, maybe in the next life. You could be charged for it. That's why I called the police earlier, I said. At my words, Lisa's eyes widened in shock. Huh? Indeed, relatives living together can't be charged for crimes, which is why Michael kicked you out, planning to report you. Dumbfounded, Lisa asked in disbelief, You betrayed your husband's sister. Well, yes, that's what happened, I confirmed. Really unbelievable, after all I've done for you. How ungrateful, Lisa complained. Who's ungrateful here? I yelled back, silencing the room. I glared straight at Lisa, unleashing my fury. Because of you, our family is a mess. It's beyond repair. What are you going to do about it? Overreacting much, Lisa shrugged. I should have never trusted you and kicked you out sooner, I said. Then Lisa turned to Kevin and Brian, spreading a sinister smile across her face. I wanted to be a mom, huh? Since I couldn't become one, I thought I'd take your mom away from you too, out of spite. Kevin and Brian looked terrified. Are you okay in the head? Just stay away from me for good. That's a problem. I came today to borrow money from you, Lisa smirked. We're family, so we should help each other in times of need, right? Yeah, right, Mom. Suddenly Kevin and Brian, who had been furious moments ago, put on a smile. Actually, we're broke too. Got fired for talking back at work for taking a little unscheduled break. They're so arrogant, Brian and Kevin complained bitterly. I felt a headache coming on. Getting fired is what you deserve, huh? Why? Yeah, we got kicked out of our apartment, Kevin casually revealed. Didn't pay the rent, so we'll stay here for a while. That's okay, right? And cover our debts. Once we're debt-free, we'll start working seriously. Can't you lend us about $60,000? You're working after all." Faced with their brazen request, I was stunned. I felt a surge of anger. Don't mess around. I have nothing to lend to sons who skipped their father's funeral. I refused strongly, but they kept asking. "Please, Mom, if you keep this up, I'll report you to the police too. Don't ever set foot in this house again." Just then, a police car siren stopped in front of the house. Lisa, trying to escape in a panic, ran into the police officers at the front door and was quietly taken away. "Damn, are we going to get arrested too?" "Let's just get out of here for now," Kevin and Brian said. They glanced at me, standing firm, gave up on asking for money, and left. Kevin and Brian, realizing that the money Lisa had given them came from Michael and their own savings, seemed to have finally lost all affection for Lisa. "I don't want to end up like them," they said, seemingly deciding to work seriously. But their laziness didn't disappear overnight. They kept calling me. "Mom, I'm being pressed for payments at the bar. Can you lend me some money? I blew it all on horse racing. Can you lend me about $200,000? I got so annoyed that I blocked their contact information. Later, they tried to ask other relatives for money, but were shunned and denounced as heartless for not attending their father's funeral, leading to estrangement. Eventually, pursued by debt collectors for borrowing from shady sources, Kevin and Brian woke up and started working seriously. However, they had racked up so much debt that they were banned from the nightclubs and bars where they were regulars. Now shunned even at their favorite drinking spots, they complained, "We've lost all the fun in our lives." Lisa, being a first offender, paid a fine and was released quickly. However, the incident led to her being dumped by her boyfriend. Moreover, after repaying the embezzled money from Michael's, Kevin's, and Brian's accounts, she ended up with a huge debt. Lisa now works from early morning till late at night, looking exhausted. What I kept secret from Lisa and my sons was that Michael had left another item in the safe, a large pink diamond necklace, a prestigious heirloom passed down from his mother. As mentioned in his letter, it was intended as a gift for our 34th wedding anniversary next year. Fearing it might be found and sold by Lisa or my sons, Michael had kept it in the safe. When appraised, it was valued at $360,000, to my astonishment. I wouldn't sell it. It's a treasured gift from Michael. Although I hoped for a warm family, things didn't go as planned with my sons, and I lost my husband too. But Michael's memory is still alive in my heart. Moving forward, I want to live strong and cherish the memories of Michael.